evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Board Special Meeting and Work Session for March 21st, 2017. Please stand and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was just thinking about
I thought we had to move.
Councilwoman Feldman.
Present.
Councilman Wiltshire.
Present.
Councilwoman Jeffrey.
Present.
Councilman DeTore.
Present.
And Supervisor Levenberg.
Here. Thank you. So we're going to begin this evening with 3 public hearings, one of which is a continuation. The other 2 are brand new. We will start with the reopening of local law number 2 of 2017. It started out as local law number 1, but then we passed another local law first, so it has now become local law number 2. And it is related to the proposed changes throughout the unincorporated area. We'll also be discussing this in our work session later this evening with our planning consultant, David Stallman. So,
Is there anyone here to address the board on this issue? Okay, please state your name and residential address.
Donna Sharrett, 84 Morningside Drive. So I just had a couple questions about I was reading the one that had all the new things in it, so I can give this to you in email tomorrow because it might be better for questions for David. But I can just briefly, it's 200, code 218D2, where it mentions using the fence as the visual barrier in addition to the trees. I think it seems like it should be clarified that the fence would serve as a visual barrier for the adjacent residential properties.
I'm sorry, could you just say that one more time?
That the fence should serve as a visual barrier. It says it should serve as a visual barrier, but I think it should go a little further and say it should serve as a visual barrier for the adjacent residential properties from the GB development, just to make it really clear as to what it's a visual barrier for. And then the other one is 250D4F regarding the structural soil, and it's really fabulous that you guys have put all of that in there. But I was a little confused. It says, I don't have it in front of me, but it says something like landscaping and street trees. So I just wanted to make sure that, like, when it gets to the planning board, that they're not thinking that all the trees need structural soil. Structural soil really is a method for allowing tree roots to grow where there would be impervious surfaces. So it's around, sidewalks or parking lots, anywhere. So you're planting a little tree and it has a little root ball, but eventually you want it to go way out. So if in that way out area, if it's an impervious surface, that's the great place to have the permeable pavement and the structural soil. So I just want to make sure that I wasn't being unclear that with developments, certainly if it's, a planting area that's got great soil and no barriers, then it should just be straight native soil, So I just want to make sure that the code reads like that so it doesn't get confusing when it goes to the planning board. And it might just be me confused. That would not be surprising. So then the last is just a comment on 183.11B2D. And this is in the existing code, so it's not a change, but I just would like to add a comment. It's about tree removal for solar access. Lately, there's been a lot of tree hatred going on, particularly on Cedar Lane, where a lot of trees were butchered. So I'm a little bit nervous about people coming into the building department and asking for a very healthy, beautiful tree to be removed just to put solar panels up. Without some consideration being taken if that's going to be a loss, having that tree removed. So, because trees do a lot, they provide oxygen, wildlife habitat, shade, and beauty. My house is like 20 degrees cooler in the summertime than the outside temperature because I have a big oak tree over our house, and I have much lower energy bills than a lot of people do, so there is a benefit to having trees. So I'm not saying they can't take them down for the solar, but the way it's written, it sounds to me like someone can walk into the building department and say, putting solar up, want to take this tree down. And I think there should be a little bit more thought to it than that. So that's my comments. And thank you for all the additions.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board on this issue? Head up.
Supervisor Levenberg, members of the board, Bruce Fiorito, 100 Croton River Road and 39 Old Albany Post Road. And the reason I came to, I had some lengthy discussion with David and regarding the zoning changes and things. And really, I'm quite upset, to say the least, because I really think we're going in the wrong direction. The lot that this involves is surrounded by warehouses. And if anyone thinks that these warehouses are ever going to go down, I don't think in our lifetime they're going to go down. We're chasing business out of Ossining. We're increasing residences. The schools are busting at the seams, and we just keep putting up houses and putting up houses. And I really got upset because when Maryknoll was here, and first we say we don't want McMansions, but then we change whatever the 1 acre zoning to 2 acre zoning, which warrants bigger houses. Then we say we're changing that so we don't impact the schools. And here I want to take a residential house that's not that's in a horrible location and take it down, but it's okay to have kids there, but not in, I'm a little confused on this. So the farther I get into this, the more upset I get, because I've had professional people hand in report after report. It really, what we want to do there makes sense for the neighborhood. It's in kind with the neighborhood. There's no one advocating change in the neighborhood. I don't understand why we're changing it. I don't understand why the GB1 zone and the NC zone, you can't put up a garage. Landscapers, plumbers, carpenters, where do they park? Where do we park in this town that there's any common sense business that everybody uses? You know, they're just chasing them out of these local towns, and we need some of these places, and this place condones that kind of business. It's a great location for that kind of business. It's on a busy street. There's no sidewalks. There's no parking. There's houses there with no parking. You know, we did complete studies on the value, and I use professional people. I don't dream things up at night. I really try to do my homework. And besides that, I'm upset because I've borne hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost. Now, I will submit some pictures going back to 1999, where from there and storms after that have ravaged my property. I told you earlier, 100,000, because 100,000 was that piece of property. You want to go around my whole property, and I have an album full of pictures that my father took. And I actually spent about $200,000. And now, I just applied for a building permit for another $100,000 wall from this property, and it all stems from water overflowing the roads, drainage intake. I have letters from our attorney, certified to John Travokas, dating back to 1999. Never brought a lawsuit to the town. Don't want to bring a lawsuit to the town. I've borne all these costs. And now I have a piece of property, and I could document it. I have pictures. I have actually brought some with me, and I'm going to stay for the work session. And if anybody wants to look at them, I can show you mud halfway up my garage door. I can show you mud halfway up my gas tanks. I can show you 2,000 yards of dirt that came down. I didn't give a bill to the town. It wasn't my water. And I just keep fixing these things. And now I have a house that I bought with the understanding it was a GB zone. Now you're changing the zone. The house doesn't belong there. And so I think in full consideration, we have to look at some of these zones. Not just for me, even the fellow next door with warehouses. I mean, you're making the zone so small for business that actually these places are becoming so valuable they'll never take them down. Because who would knock down property that people need? Again, I had somebody come in my yard this afternoon looking for a spot to park his truck because they're booting out of their backyards. And if you want to take a ride around town and see how many people are in their backyards with their little vans and trucks, and I'm not saying throw them out, I'm saying they need place to go. Where do they go? The local towns don't allow them. I mean, I even have a 14-acre property in Putt Valley. I can't even give it away because the taxes are so high because there's no business. The schools are busting, taxes are high, they don't want commercial. So I really think we have to reevaluate some of these zones and see what we're really doing. And I thought, you know, and I understand we're all trying to reinterpret this, and I appreciate, you know, you're doing this, and I saw changes David made and things like that, which are great, but I don't think we're quite there yet. And that's kind of why I came. So, thank you. Yeah, I don't have a copy to leave, though, but I'll take it back, and I'll give it to you, then if you give it back, then I'll make copies, and I just didn't have time to get the copies. So I will, yeah, I'll stick around, then I'll follow it up with, you know, I don't dream these things. These are real, and it's really deep in my pockets, and, you know, again, I just try to be fair.
Just one question. Thank you. What about the other residents in Crotonville out there? Nobody else?
I've
has
had
any
nobody,
problem?
a couple of them came to meeting, we spoke to them outside, we spoke about what we were thinking. There's no other resident that I know, maybe they've submitted something to the board, you know, unbeknown to me, but there's no other resident that's wanted these changes, and
We have received some
And-
positive
and-
feedback from residents.
and I'm not really sure that even the way the GB1 zone and that zone set up is proper for what we want to do. So, you know, that's what, you know, speaking with David, he said he was coming in and gonna hash out some of these things.
Now, I can understand what you're saying, and I also understand what the supervisor's saying. You have some people who sent letters, but if that's all they're doing, they must not be very interested.
And they're like 3.
Oh,
Not like 20. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
that's what I'm-
mitigate, like, we're not hearing from
yeah.
100 people. We're
that's what
hearing
I'm
from-
saying. Where are the people? Where are the people that's objecting other than you? And nobody shows up until something happens. Then they'll show up.
I really think, you know, what we want to do is a great use of the property. I think it's an improvement of what's there.
Can you just
And
repeat what it is that you want to do?
I want to do a small garage-type building that, you know, landscapers, plumbers, electricians, people can rent and have a place to go because they don't have any place to go. And
What you originally had said was you wanted to build an office space in the front, which had related garages in the back for the businesses. You said you wanted to
Well-
build an office space in the front, which would have face onto the roadside. You would see an office facade, and then the related trucks would have a place to park. That is what you said to me, I know.
Well,
And
that's
as far
kind
as
of
I
what it,
understand,
originally I
that's-
wanted a garage building, then we kind of, I was kind of getting talked into doing something like that because I thought it was going to work. And then when David interpreted, you know, what the law is, and it didn't really work. And then and then finally getting from him exactly what you can do, the area you can cover, and things like that, you know, it also has to be what works on the property. So there wasn't enough room, and this is just all in the last couple of weeks. You know, because as it's being defined better, then we kind of know more what we have to work with. And so, you know, I want to make something that looks nice, but what these people need, you know, the way he interprets it as it's written right now, and I know it's not finished yet, was that it was, you could have a garage as long as you had a retail outfit for a retail place for what you're doing there. So not just for parking and
Right.
You
It's
know-
not supposed to be warehouse space.
right.
Correct.
And really,
True.
there's, you know, like I said, there's no stores, or there's no sidewalks, there's no parking, it's just not a retail location. So, and it's a busy road. I mean, that's the main thoroughfare in and out of, you know, Crotonville and actually back of Cortland there. Since the dam is closed now, they can't go the other way around. So, it's a busy road. And, you know, it's not just a place that you would go, you know, to a store. It's just not that type of a location. And it doesn't really impact anybody doing whatever there, you know. It's not like you're in between a bunch of mansions or nice houses. It's really just not that section of town. I think it's a perfect section of town to do what I'm proposing. I think it fits, you know, with the neighborhood. So, so, any other?
How many parking garages did you envision on that, what's it, a quarter acre?
It's a quarter acre. According to the present
Dimensions,
code,
okay.
you can use up to 30% of your property in that zone for a building.
Okay,
And,
When you say the current code, you're saying before the changes? That's
well,
when
even,
you-
even with the changes, I'm assuming that the footprint would be, you know, pretty, you know, size would be still pretty standard.
so how many vans
coverage.
fit in that?
And, you know, we were just toying around with it a little bit this morning, because David just called me back this morning. And, so then I was on a job, so by the time we were playing around with it, and I don't remember exactly how many, but we couldn't get as many square feet as what the code allowed, I don't think, because it's a little unusual shaped property too.
Right,
So with the setbacks and things like that.
so even if it's GB, it doesn't fit?
So, it'll fit, it's just if it's allowed. Now, he's saying that with the GB1 code, it doesn't work that way either. So that's why I'm saying, I think there's a little issue with the codes there, because everything is warehouse around it. And now you're doing something,
What's the-
basically, it kind of limits you to a storefront. And I don't really know what anyone would sell from there.
But what size, within all of the current codes, what fits on the property? As far as, you know, can you put one van, can you put two?
Oh, you could probably put, I'm thinking maybe 3 sets of garages.
So three,
Max of how many?
You mean
Oh.
3 garages?
Three.
I think you know, like I said, we didn't finalize it all, but it was kind of like, pretty sure we wound up with about 50 feet wide and about 30 feet deep or something like that. So by code, if it's 11,000 square feet, you could have a little over 3,000 square foot building. And for instance, if you were 50 by 30, that's only 1,500 square feet.
okay.
So you can't get on it as much as they allow. I mean, reasonably, you know. And then there's, you know, there's other things that then may or may not require variances depending on how the code works out. Like, my original contention was keep it a little more office looking is what I meant in the front, and garages in the back. But the issue there is, with the depth of the lot, unless, you know, the zoning board would let you bring the building a little closer to the road, then you could drive around the back maybe and get into it. Because there's a 30-foot setback from the street. So with the depth of the lot, if, you know, you couldn't be able to get around unless they let you pull it up 10 feet or something like that. So that's another, you know, that's another issue that, you know, sometimes can be hammered out. But without doing variances and stuff, I tried to kind of fit what would fit on the,
So currently, the
Lot.
way it is, you can maybe fit 3 garages
Mm-hmm.
with the current setbacks and all the different, and enough room for to pull into them.
right.
Okay.
So.
I'm feeling like a big,
Single car garage,
Oh, it would probably be, you know, for trucks and vans, you probably want, you know, 12 feet wide or something like that. A car would be 8, so.
It wouldn't be, it doesn't sound like it's singular. It sounds like 3 separate garages with maybe 2 or 3 within, is that, we're just trying to
Yeah,
figure it out.
oh, yeah,
like a
because,
3-bay.
yeah, because I'm looking at,
3 bay for each one being in 3 of them.
well,
Because 3,000 square feet is 3,000 square feet as a garage.
well, you can't fit 3,000 though. I think we can only
Right,
get
so
1,500,
so
2,000 maybe.
I know, that's what I think we're all trying to
We're
figure
trying to
out.
figure out how many
Oh,
vehicles.
well, I'm thinking,
12, well, if you said
Preferably,
if a
we could
van
get
is
like
12
3 tenants in there is what I thought, because then you could, because it's little businesses
How many
that need.
vehicles?
If each guy has 2 vehicles,
So 6 vehicles?
6 vehicles,
Okay, now we know.
yeah,
Okay, great,
something like that,
okay.
And you need the depth, because I'm figuring if they put a vehicle in, you need storage space like behind it. So if a vehicle, typical van or something is 18, 20 feet long, then you give them 10 feet behind it, for inside storage, because you can't have any outside storage, and you don't want any outside storage.
We don't have the other one.
So you want to try to,
I don't have the other one. Ah, thank you.
Okay, so, anybody else have questions for Mr. Fiorito? Is there anybody else here to address the board on local law number 2 for the purpose of amending the zoning and cabaret chapters of the town
Thank you.
code?
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We'll take this up in work session. Okay,
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn this public hearing until Tuesday, March 28th at the town board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Okay.
They're two different.
There is Exhibit A and Exhibit B. You should have 2 sheets.
I don't have an A.
I do. Yeah, it's here. Hold on.
Just got one.
We didn't realize that it was, that's why. Wait, there you go. It's underneath.
Sorry. Okay, so our next public hearing is on a change that has been proposed by our general counsel regarding how the town administers tax payment plans for when people are not, have not been able to make their tax payments in a timely manner. And they need to pay back, a lump sum or some amount of money to the town. And Christy Donna is going to walk us through the recommendation and how it will affect the operations of the tax office. If you wanna-
So this actually came about last year when the receiver of taxes was presenting certain payment plans to the town board. State law under the real property tax law authorizes the legislative board of the town to implement local law, which you have done in your code, to create the policy of installment payment plans. So like the supervisor said, if a property owner is delinquent on their property taxes and they meet certain requirements under the code, then the town board and the receiver of taxes are authorized to establish a payment plan whereby the property owner over a certain period of time would pay any outstanding taxes as well as penalties, fees, interest, et cetera, that have accrued with respect to the delinquent taxes. The state law authorizes the local code provisions that are adopted to allow for payments during payments over various periods of time, either monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, semi-annually. Your code reads that the payments are to be made quarterly as a requirement. However, the receiver of taxes has found that for the benefit of the town in administering the payment plans, as well as the property owner in paying off the delinquent taxes, that monthly is the preferred method in which to make the payments. And so, because state law authorizes that time period, but your code states otherwise, this is kind of just a housekeeping measure in order to make what your code says consistent with what town law authorizes, and also what the town has found to be the most favorable way to approach this. So really, it's a very minimal zoning text amendment change that's set forth in the draft local law that has been published and circulated in accordance with the proper notice provisions. So currently, it says that the installment payments shall be made in quarterly installments. Now quarterly will be omitted and monthly will be replaced. So it will say shall be in monthly installments for a period not to exceed 24 months, which is also a requirement in state law. And then we suggested recommending, including another sentence at the end, another phrase at the end of that sentence that states upon approval of the installment agreement by the town board, which is really just further enforcement of the practice of the town of having the receiver of taxes go through the initial dialogue with the property owner, and then having the town board approve that agreement before anything is finalized and the property owner starts making payments. So just to read through the whole section together, it'll now read, if the town board does decide to go forward with this text amendment, payment of eligible delinquent taxes together with interest accruing after execution of an installment agreement shall be made in monthly installments for a period not to exceed 24 months upon approval of the installment agreement by the town board. Does anyone have any questions I can address?
Makes sense.
I think it's just about time that we did this, and I'm happy that this is before us and that you have made the suggestion that we incorporate it into our town code so we can clean up something that should have probably been done a long time ago.
Is anyone here to address the board on this issue? Okay, seeing no one, may I have a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Great. Okay, so next up, our final public hearing of the evening is on the cabaret renewal for the Briarcliff Manor operating as Antipasti di Napoli. I see we have Mr. Perry DiNapoli in the audience in case if anyone has any questions or if anybody else is here to address the board on this matter. Hi. I don't think we have any questions. Does anybody here have any questions?
I note that we have a resident who often comes, and there was a time when that resident would come and complain before you, and even when you, and then that resident previously has come to thank you for working with them. So we are being told that you're a good neighbor, and so we're happy not to see anybody here. We didn't get an email, we didn't get a call, so thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think we're very appreciative of your response and the time that you took to actually go to people's homes, see what the problem was, and figure out a way to mitigate it. And I think you set a high bar, and actually a reasonable bar, for other businesses to do the same. Very appreciative of that.
Yes.
Else have anything?
So you can plug one time. Go ahead. Where are you? When are you open? What do you serve?
Well, we've reopened our restaurant, so we closed down a little bit for the winter, but we've reopened for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights when we don't have a wedding or a party going on. And we plan on having music going forward, starting this Thursday. We'll have music every Thursday. Hopefully there'll be a response, and we'll keep that going.
All right.
Okay, so we were going to just adjourn, close this.
Yeah.
But I don't think we were voting on it tonight. That was not the plan. We were not going to be voting on it until the next meeting,
We're closing.
which is next Tuesday.
All right, great. Well, thank you all.
But
Thank you.
thank you very much, very much appreciate.
Okay, can I have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Do you have to, are you supposed to do it? You don't have to do a roll call for it. No, that's just for the,
I think we should do this all
Passage
night.
of.
I think I should move it, and the two of you should
The
say it at
twins
the
will-
same time. I think we should just do
Okay.
it all night.
all right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, abstention? Okay, thank you.
Thinking like.
All right, so next up, announcements. And I don't have my formal organized announcements, but I do have a couple that I would just like to note. We have April 6th is pasta night for the Ossining Elks Lodge from 6 to 8 p.m. Enjoy spaghetti, meatball, salad, soup, dessert, coffee. I guess you only get one meatball because it just says meatball. For $10 at 118 Croton Avenue, 941-1486. It's April 6th, but then it says Thursday, February 2nd. I don't know why it says that. So April 6th, we're going to go with that. Next, gravestone cleaning at Dale Cemetery. Save the date, April 22nd from 9 to 12. That's the first one for the season, so hope everybody can make it. We have the last weekend coming up of Lot's Wife, and I should have been holding up all of these things. This is, I had an opportunity to see this twice now, and I highly recommend it. It's a great new space down by the river, and it's a black box theater, and they're doing a great job in the space, and please take the opportunity to check it out this weekend. I think that there's performances Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon. It doesn't actually say on here, but you can get more information at WC Theater, the traditional theater spelling, THEATER.org.
Get turned to salt.
She does not, but I should probably not have told you that. There is a little twist. There is a little twist. There's a little twist, but it is the story of Lot's wife. So, anyhow, it's an interesting take, and there's actually some students in it as well as adults from our community and from outside our community. As you know, we are looking forward to the grand opening of the new Cedar Lane Arts Center at Cedar Lane Park. We're in the process right now of paving Cedar Lane Park entrance, which we're going to have going to be widening a little bit to make it easier for cars to get in and out at the same time. Also, soon we're going to have an opportunity to actually improve the path around the pond, the docks, and overall. But on Friday, April 21st, we are going to have our grand opening of Cedar Lane Arts Center. And there is a call for artists to participate in a competition for to actually have a sign that says Cedar Lane Arts Center in the inside of the building. It's for a 4x6 piece, which you can design. Let's see, the deadline for submission for proposals is April 1st. The notification of winners is April 15th. And then the installation is actually going to be May 29th. But at the ribbon cutting, we will reveal the winner to the public. Artists are encouraged to think about a finished piece that can be fabricated from various objects but must be ready to be wall mounted. You can send your file to cedarlaneartscouncil.org, and we're very grateful to the Arts Council to be partnering with us on this. They've selected some judges who have expertise in the field of art, and hopefully we'll have some excellent submissions. There is a $20 entry fee. And Mark Sarazin, who's the president of the Austin Arts Council, is the contact. You can get more information, as I mentioned. Oh, actually, I didn't mention that, but I think that at the AustinArtsCouncil.org is their website, and I'm guessing that there's more information there as well, or you can contact us at town office at 762-6001. Let me see, I think that might be, one last thing, which is not to forget that to support Austin Matters, which is the education foundation for the Austin School District, there's the big soiree this Saturday, and I'm sorry that I missed the opportunity to say this while Mr. DiNapoli was still here, but he is hosting the event at Antipasti Di Napoli, starting at 7:30 p.m., and all money will benefit Austin Matters, which provides a lot of fantastic programming that the teachers request throughout the school district, and is really a huge value added to our community. So I encourage you all to attend. It's usually a fabulous evening. I hope some of you will join me there. I will be there. And that is it for my announcements. Does anybody else have some additional announcements? Okay. Ms. Zahat.
I just wanted to make a short announcement, and this is something that we've talked about before, but last year the town and village of Ossining joined together to do a Relay for Life team for the Ossining Relay for Life, and so we decided to do it again this year, but in speaking with town employee Juan Toribio and his wife Lauren, they have already assembled Team Geo Strong, and so the town and village are going to be piggybacking on their team. And the reason I bring it up now is because on Wednesday, March 29th at 6:30 p.m. at the Ossining Public Library is going to be the Relay for Life kickoff meeting for the 2017 year. So I know that I will be there, and I hope a couple other folks from the town and village can join me. And we want to see a very big turnout this year, especially for Geo. Awesome guy.
Say that again, March 29th.
March 29th, it's a Wednesday at the library at 6:30 p.m.
Fantastic. All right.
Not to get into now, but your favorite thing that I always ask, which is about the new Cedar Lane Arts
Oh, I
Center.
get that right.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know. Only because you said widening the road, and I just had a question about how that was going to happen. So I guess that could be part of that whole
It can
conversation.
absolutely, because
Okay.
we have an expert here in the audience who's gonna talk to us about that in a
Tom
little
Warren?
while.
Great, I have some questions about that.
Great, yep. Paul Frioli, and it's not quite yet, so when we get there, which is soon,
Well, I appreciate
we're
it.
getting there very soon. Okay, so, hearing no announcements, liaison reports. Any of you out there want to do a liaison report? You know, you guys are liaisons, no. Okay, hearing none, and departmental reports, that's what I meant. No, we don't want any from our comptroller. Okay, we're gonna skip over that. Public comment on agenda items. Anybody here to comment on any of the agenda items? Okay. Hearing none, we will now move into our resolutions.
Okay. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the February 28th, 2017 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the March 7th, 2017 minutes of the special meeting as presented.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
And this is why some.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay.
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated March 14th, so again, this is from last meeting, and it should be 2017, in the amount of $290,628.29 for 2016, and $328,506.06 for 2017, for a grand total of $619,134.35.
Do I have a motion?
As amended.
As amended. Do I have a motion as amended?
Yes.
So moved.
I think I said so
Second.
moved.
Thank
Oh,
you.
goodness gracious.
This is trying tonight, okay. But it's very cute. Okay, so, hopefully we have our final 2016 voucher detail. Cross our fingers. We believe we have a lot, but there might be one or two little strays that still come in. Many of the bills for 2016 are what we call truing up between the town and village for prior year expenses. As for 2017, we have a few significant bills in here, including our NYMER insurance premium for 2017. I didn't pull that out. Do you remember what it is off the top
Yeah,
of
it's
your head?
$121,000, and that's
that's-
obviously an annual expense.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Next up.
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby authorizes the supervisor to sign an agreement with Dolph Rotfeld Engineering, P.C., 200 White Plains Road, Tarrytown, New York, to assist the town with the preparation of the annual stormwater report for program year 2016-2017 for a contract amount totaling $2,500.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So the town's been working with this firm, and they're very well known in the field to prepare our annual MS4 or stormwater report. Some of the regulations may be changing, but I believe that that's actually been put on hold. We've been working with Delph since 2012. They continue to do an excellent job for us. They do a lot of work around the county, and we look forward to our kickoff meeting with them in the coming weeks. Any other questions? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby amends the 2017 procurement policy to change the below language in the following sections. I'm going to spare you from reading the entire thing, but the important point, and we have Town Controller Tom Warren here, is that we are increasing the threshold of material and supply purchases from $10,000 to $20,000. So in both places where the number $10,000 is mentioned, it is now $20,000.
All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I just have a question.
Do I have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Thank you. Okay. Now discussion.
What was the, what brought this on?
Now we're going to ask our comptroller, Tom Warren, to come up and talk to us about this.
I have no problem.
This is
with
the
it.
one we talked
Yes.
about, right?
It's
That's
okay.
right.
Just wanted to get the motion.
Thank you, and good evening, Supervisor Levenberg and members of the town board. I'd actually written a memo to the supervisor asking if they would consider changes to the town procurement policy to increase the threshold for requiring competitive bidding on those contracts that are not made under a state contract or purchased under a county contract or another local government, New York State local government contract that allows piggybacking, or through the different consortiums that the town has allowed, the National Joint Powers, or Powers Alliance, I believe, and the Empire State Purchasing Group. This was in part a move to bring the town's requirements and limits up to the threshold that New York State allows. For years and years, decades, the procurement limits for purchase competitive bidding was $10,000 on a purchase contract and $20,000 on a public works contract. And a few years ago, the town had increased the public work threshold to $30,000 after the New York State Legislature had increased the respective thresholds up to $20,000 and $35,000 respectively. So the one contract type was amended, the purchase of the public work contracts, and now we are asking for the purchase contract threshold to be increased to the $20,000 that has been in place since the year 2000. And the reason why the legislature had made these changes was to keep pace with inflation, since they hadn't been increasing the thresholds for so many years. It also helps remove some of the burden involved when you have to put items out to competitive bid. You know, you have to draft the bid specs, you have to advertise it, you have to you know, wait for the bids to be arrived and open them up and evaluate them and award them. So this would you know, just make it a little bit easier administratively, but the state does require the procurement policy, which is being readopted tonight with the changes, if the board approves, to provide guidance to those, to all the department heads to make purchases that fall under the competitive bidding thresholds or can't be purchased under state contract or other local contract or the consortiums. And the procurement policy, you know, provides the requirements that you get 3 price quotes generally. So the control is still there to require the department heads to make the honest attempt to buy things for the least cost and best value for the town, and that's why there's a requirement for the price quotes. And also, as part of the purchase order policy, the department heads have to submit their price quotes and a purchase requisition, which gets reviewed and approved by the town supervisor anyway. So, you know, there are controls here. This is just one phase to make it a little bit easier, especially in 2017 with some of the capital purchases that are being done at the parks and the cemetery, where it might help out with the procurement of these items that were approved by the town board.
So now, from 3,000 to up to 19,999. Department heads would have to get the 3 quotes, attach those. Does that come to you? Then they can decide, and then they just send it to you for sign off, or do they have to send it to you for sign off first, and then they can order? How it work?
Yeah, they're supposed to get a purchase order before they go. In other words, they submit the 3 bids to us, and then
You
the
two.
lowest responsible bid.
Okay.
We have a conversation usually, and then, but we haven't done it again for anything over $10,000. So,
No, I get it. So now going
Yes.
forward is 1 to 299 is 2 quotes, 3 to 1999 is 3 quotes attachment, and then 20
Correct.
up
Would be-
is 3 bid.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well,
20 up
It
is
goes out to
competitive
bid. It could be
bidding.
as many
Competitive
competitive
bid.
bids.
Yeah,
It just- it could
20
be
up.
Whoever responds.
Got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just ask one question about the language? And again, I'm not very familiar with this, so I may just not be, I may be missing something, but on the bottom of the last paragraph on the page, it's E subsection A, and then it says, any public works contract over $10,000 must follow the procedures and obtain 3 written quotes. A public works contract over $30,000 is subject to competitive bidding. Is that correct?
Yeah, because public
Public works is
different than
differentiated from-
procurement. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are the other villages or towns around us? Where are their limits? Do we know?
You know, actually, the village finally adopted the threshold increases that the state legislature allowed since the year 2000. We finally changed it this year. There's not a lot of purchases that fall, between like $10,000 and $20,000 that you can't find under, like through the NJPA or not under state contract or another local contract.
Okay.
But it's oftentimes difficult to find a contract that you're allowed to piggyback under. And what that means is when a local government puts something up to bid, they allow other governments to buy under that contract, like the village does for the annual bid contracts, like electrician and materials and supplies and things like that. There's not a lot of piggybacking because mostly governments are now buying under these procurement groups or under state contract, things like that. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Well, that wasn't
you
the-
asked about other local
Right.
governments. We
So
haven't
what's the village's limit? What's,
So the village has 20,000, I think 35 for
Yes.
public works,
Okay.
correct? And that was changed this year.
I haven't surveyed other local governments.
but the state allows?
The
So,
s-
okay.
the state does allow up to 20 and 35,000 respectively.
So how has it been you kind of touched on it. How has it been going with are they called consortiums? Is that what that was called?
Like the NJPA?
The NJP, yeah, I remember when we voted to allow it. So has it been working? Do we get to do stuff?
It works. It works on the village. I know that we buy a lot of things under the consortiums, and in fact, DPW has requested that we join another consortium because they found equipment. And the consortiums, actually do work. They actually are operated by like a governmental type organization. They put the items out to competitive bids. We have to look at their documentation to make sure that they are following some type of competitive bidding guidelines that mirror what's
What we do.
required in New York State.
Right. So it's been working for the village, it just doesn't work for the town as much because we don't have,
The town has been buying the highway trucks under the Onondaga County contract. That's, generally the counties always put
They allow
things out to bid to allow
piggybacking.
piggybacking. So any New York State local government can pretty much buy under any county contract.
be like Onondaga.
And
Well, you know what?
I'm
North
just-
Salem had bought from them and they were really
Yeah.
happy with the vehicles.
Okay.
That was
And
good.
the parks or the playground equipment that was purchased a few years ago was actually purchased under the NJPA contract.
Yes, and I remember, didn't we consolidate that? Because we did that with the village, right? We bought a whole bunch of stuff at the same time.
Both the town and the village had their own contracts because we were both members of the NJPA.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Are there any other
Thank you.
questions? We good on this? Everybody, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Wonderful. All right. So, moving right along.
Resolved that the 2016 year-end budget is modified as described below.
Okay.
And these are obviously
Please
posted
see-
on the website and in the office of the town clerk.
Okay,
All
explain
4
that. They're
pages.
not gonna- no, Well, I'll just say that, we're getting ready to close out the 2016 year. We need to make adjustments to zero out our budget. Big thank you to Deputy Comptroller Dale Ferrara for her hard work throughout the process. If you have any specific questions, feel free to ask.
Well, are these moving over, or
So
are they overages that we have to pay out?
the column on the left is we overspent on the left, and we're moving money from the column on the right to fill that hole. So the left side is the hole, the right side is where we're filling the hole from.
Right, so these are overages. These are monies that we've overspent in all of these line.
On the
But,
left, we
yeah.
overspent, but on the right, we
we
underspent.
So, you know, it's like always like a jockeying
Ah,
within the budget
okay.
line, so you
Yeah,
think,
I'm
oh, I'm gonna
watching.
spend this much here, but I
Okay.
really spent this much there instead of here, and I didn't spend it
Okay.
in that line.
Okay. So, just explain to me when we're transferring from one GL account, you know, that's a .0110 in, over, is that going across, it's just, we're just transferring all this money into these different lines? Because I'm trying to figure out the lines.
Well, the way that it's displayed might be a little bit confusing. So,
what I'm
for
trying to
example,
figure
if you look at like the town or the traffic violation section, this is an easy example. So the holes to fill were $662 and $4,197. Rather than take $662 from one place and match it exactly, we just took $4,859 from one place where we underspent and filled both.
Both, right.
Okay.
So basically,
it.
the total on the right is gonna
Yes,
equal the
total on the left.
not
That's what I wanted to
necessarily
know.
line for
Not
line.
line by line.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, we're always taking from the same fund
Yes,
to
exactly.
replenish
Got it.
that same fund.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Not try this at home.
All those in favor?
Oh, there's
Never
no
actually a
motion.
motion.
Sorry,
She
there
didn't,
wasn't?
she didn't
Oh,
read it yet.
sorry.
No.
No, she did read it.
Yep.
Do I have a motion?
did.
I thought I asked for it. Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby accepts with regret the resignation of part-time intermediate clerk Patricia Fracassi effective March 2nd, 2017.
Do I have a motion? So, back in December, one of our part-time employees, Pat Fracassi, who was a very long, had worked for a very long time, for the town, shared with us her decision to resign. Her supervisor, Marion Roberts, could not be with us this evening, but had the following kind words about Pat to share. Pat has served in the clerk's office for over 25 years as deputy town clerk and was a valued employee. She retired in 2009 and then returned to the office part-time to help with office training. She was an inspiration and a role model in our office. On behalf of the Town of Ossining Clerk's Office, we wish Pat all the best in her new retirement. Oh my God, she said retirement, but I'm just gonna add in new. We also wish Pat the very best, from the entire town board, and we're very grateful for her many, many years of dedicated service to the town and all of those who reside in it. Thanks so much, Pat.
Thank you.
Else have any other comments? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Again, with regret. Thanks, Pat.
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby appoints Miss Christina Lobu Yonkers to the, that should say permanent, part-time position of intermediate clerk in the Office of the Town Clerk at a rate of $15 per hour effective December 13th, 2016.
Do you have a motion?
As amended.
Amended?
Second as amended.
All those, I'm sorry.
I
sorry,
did it as
you did-
amended, she
right.
seconded it as
Okay,
amended.
right. So with the resignation of Pat Cassie, we had a vacancy in the office of the town clerk. Marion Roberts suggested, and we agreed that our temporary replacement for her be appointed into this role on a regular basis. Christina is an incredibly bright, talented, and friendly addition to the clerk's office, and we look forward to her continued presence at 16 Croton Avenue. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining authorizes a budget adjustment increase for Capital Project 2198 titled Sanitary Sewer Improvements, Croton Dam and Kitchewan Road from $50,000 to $51,630. The project budget increase of $1,630 is funded by a transfer from Consolidated Sewer Fund balance.
Have a motion?
Moved.
So, when we opened this capital project, we expected to have only bills from Charles Manganero for the design work, but there have been 2 additional expenses we had to incur, including the survey work by Merritts and a small fee to the Department of Health, the County Department of Health. We continue to work with the state DOT and the Village of Ossining on this important project. Our water superintendent, Andy Teese, will be joining us on April 4th to update the board on our progress and next steps. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm sorry, is that the water, is that the line from
That's the culvert.
Under
the
9A.
and-
towards the garden?
Correct. The garden?
Cedar
No,
Lane?
no,
I'm
no.
Nope,
No, no, no.
hot dog truck under 9A to 134.
Wait, so
Oh,
this is the
could
big culvert, this
oh,
is
the
the big
culvert.
culvert project,
yeah.
and we had a number of,
Hot dog truck underline. Under
It
nine.
worked.
I like it.
I know shorthand, all right?
yeah. So I'll just, I mean, I'll just do the very brief update is that, we had actually designed, different plan for the sewer line
Yes,
that
got
we
it.
believed we had to undertake, which involved easements and a lot of other complicated issues that we were running kind of up against a wall. We've since, the state came up with a different design that everybody agreed to for basically maintaining the sewer line where it is right now, but doing a much better job of encapsulating it and putting a bigger distance between the culvert and the sewer line so that hopefully it will last for many, many years to come, and that reduce the need for us to have to acquire the easement that we believed that we needed to do, which had involved private property. So this is good news for us. We wish we'd come up with that solution a little sooner, but we didn't, and nevertheless, we still have Manganero overseeing the project on behalf of the town, which is great, and they're very much involved. The state has been here as recently as today, I believe. They met with our highway superintendent to do some testing, and it does look like they're going to be moving forward, and the hope is that it would be sometime maybe, hopefully after school is out, so that it won't be so disruptive for the for the buses. But they believe, I think it's only going to be a week that it's going to take them for that particular part of the job. Maybe 2 weeks total for the rest of it on Kitchewan. But I think that Hawks, or rather 134 would be open. So, all those in favor? I did? Oh, fantastic. Let's not try to vote again in that case. Thank you.
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining authorizes a 2016 budget adjustment to Capital Project 2013-2183 entitled Shine House Renovation, increasing the project budget from $120,305 to $190,643, with the additional amount of $70,338 to be funded by a fund balance transfer from general fund.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Remember when we were asking why it
As
was called the money pit?
Grand reopening date grows near, our parks crew is furiously working to finish the site work at Cedar Lane Park at Shine House and Ice House, now called the Cedar Lane Arts Center. While we plan to have Mario Velardo join us for a full presentation on April 18th, we wanted to share with the board a quick project update in concert with this resolution. At the end of 2016, we have spent just shy of $179,000, and we are confident that, save for the repaving of the parking lot, we will come in below the $210,000 ceiling that we anticipated in late 2015. We have invited Paul Fraioli, our town engineer, here to provide us a little perspective on the work product. Mr. Fraioli, thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you, Supervisor and council people. This evening, I will start by saying that the capital project is, I would say, not a typical capital project in that it was established in 2013, when I could comfortably say that, because I was somewhat involved in what the idea was out at the Shine House, which is now going to be the Arts Center, what the scope of the work was going to be. So the number was put to a defined scope, which was the roof and some improvements on the building. And then it kind of expanded through, starting with Supervisor Donnelly's administration into Supervisor Levenberg's administration. And I think the work product is definitely going to show its true worth at the opening. That said, if you look through the myriad of expenses in the ledger that I was just perusing before I came down here, starting in 2013, the main expense was when the project was in the year that the project commenced, of the roof and the siding and the window improvements, that roughly $59,000 of the $178,000. From that point on, Although there was subcontract work used, typically our annual bidders for work like with some of the mechanical systems in the boiler, the HVAC, and some of the electrical work, the scope of just reconditioning the building expanded to bringing a new potable water service to the building, redoing the electrical to the building to eventually supply the appropriate electrical capacity to some of the things that were going to be incorporated into the Arts Center, some lighting work. But then we got into the field work where material costs started to take over, where all of the work outside of what I just went over there with the subcontract work was done by in-house staff, primarily Mario Velardo and his staff. But they have to buy the materials. There was dilapidated drainage that did not function. So we really looked at it kind of holistically and said, look, where do we want to go with the project? It's great that we're fixing the building, but we have to really make this site appropriate to welcome guests so they can park appropriately, that they can access the building appropriately, including ADA accessibility. So we really looked at the entire lot, and before you did the lot, we looked at the drainage, because the drainage did not work. The gardens would flood during heavy rainstorms. The puddling would be in the parking lot. It would really not make it a very desirable place to have that amenity there. Although the folks that garden in there do a wonderful job, it was often compromised by the weather. That doesn't happen anymore. Mario and crew fixed all the drainage in-house with either rented equipment or equipment that the town owns, and that's all working very well. But he expanded that into rehabilitating the walls around the pond. He's helped develop with the supervisor's office the grant application, for which we hope to receive at my earlier presentation with Ms. Caffarelli, the $85,000 for the grant from DASNY, and we're pretty confident that that's going to come forth. We already received the approval. Now we're just going through the logistics of defining what it is, and then we have the authorization to start spending that money. So we expect a proposal from the engineer who is going to help us develop the structural components of that work. And again, we're going to utilize in-house services to do in-kind contribution towards the project to get the most out of the $85,000 grant.
That $85,000 grant secured by?
Senator Carlucci's office.
Thank you.
Yes.
DASNY didn't just up and give it to you.
Correct. Thank you for expanding on my presentation, and I'm sorry I left that out. So between that $85,000 grant and this $178,000 expenditure, primarily, which was either coordinated or executed by the town's in-house labor, we are going to have a renovated from the pillars at the entrance to the new parking and into the building proper, a new arts center. I think it's going to be a great amenity. One question with regard that came up with, I think
the road, like how
the road width.
Yeah, how it's a great idea. I'm just trying to figure out, visualize where you guys are going to go, because just expand it going in, right? You're
Right.
either going towards the pond or you're going towards woods, I guess.
Go toward the pond.
Yeah, well, we're actually doing a little of both, depending on what the road allows. The sub base and the site preparation for that is being done in-house right now. If you go there now, you'll see the parks crews performing the sub base necessary for a contractor to come in and do the paving work, which is not going to be in-house, but it's going to be done by a paving contractor. I just received the final proposal this afternoon, and it's already probably in purchase order generation.
So it's
mode.
about how much distance on both sides? Just
We look to increase the road to a width of 16 feet, which is more than adequate for
length or width?
width.
It's going to be total of 16 feet.
I'm trying to figure out, so
It's going a little bit on
Where-
one side and a little bit on the other. So it's basically goes to the tree line on the one side, and it goes a little bit into the pond
Slope
side.
of
So
the
that's
going
gonna
into
be
the
built
pond.
up. That's gonna be built up so that it's.
because a width of 16 is 8 on each side, 8 feet. That's not a little bit.
But it's not.
That's a
but
whole
you-
road
that's-
width.
it-
It's not additionally 16.
Okay, that's what I'm trying
I'm sorry.
to figure.
For clarification, right now the road ranged anywhere from 12 to 13 feet in width.
I see.
It wasn't, I don't think we really
So
had
like 3.
issue. Right. We didn't have issue, but if you go in there, you can see the ruts of the wheels for the couple of times, maybe throughout a month, that you have a conflict of someone leaving at the same time they're coming in. But with this art center, we anticipate a lot of attendance and traffic, and it was necessary. So from the pillars in
Yeah.
enveloping the triangle, if you will, and then continuing towards the Arts Center and repaving the entire parking lot. Now that all the drainage is in there, and we're gonna do it, and with this drainage and how we're gonna do the paving
was
with
like, oh, that's
binder and
something.
top course, we are building this to last.
That was included in our, budget, what we had planned to spend
For the 210.
for the paving for,
Oh.
no, that's not
Separate.
included in 210. That's above and beyond. The paving is not included, because it's not really just
And
for
how much is the
Shine
paving?
House. It's gonna be about 70.
The paving proposal came in at 64,000. It's basically a unit price that kind of mirrors the annual bid, because, we have to follow procurement, so we've
And then
coordinated that
probably
with.
a little bit more
we-
materials that we buy for in-house.
Does that encompass the, okay, follow me.
Can I ask,
When you're going to the pillars and you hit the triangle, there is a piece of the road that goes up into the parking lot for the field. Why would we not do that? Why would we not bid it all at the same time? Because just that increase is horrific.
I could say that in discussions with Parks and some of the work they have planned for the parking lot and some of the work they have planned from where the other road takes you up on the right side. I don't know how to refer
Up
to
to
that.
the dog
Dog
park.
park.
Secondary. Right. There's a few things planned up there where we don't know if it's really prudent to do a new road going to somewhere that might have some work ongoing in the future, where we might want to wait to see what they're going to do, because we don't want to put new top course where you might have large vehicles or trucks or what have you, ripping that up to create something else.
But you're gonna have, okay. so
ripping that up to create
I'm just
what?
following the logic. If you don't, you're gonna have large vehicles though on the new road, right? Going into the pillar, where,
It-
you're gonna have if there's going to be work that is done in any part of going to the pavilion or going to the dog park or going to the field, if that's the thought process, and the
One piece that you left out.
what's the piece I left out?
The piece that you left out is the Rubin House. So we don't really know yet. We had talked in sort of theoretically about some potential proposal for the Rubin House, which is
Take it down?
right up, which is up there, to either take it down or look to do some kind of a request for proposals to see if we could find an adaptive reuse for that building. And we talked about doing, the potential of doing like a farm-to-table restaurant and
Okay.
rehabbing the
But
greenhouse.
I'm still trying to figure out whether you do that or not, you're still gonna have big vehicles that are gonna have to come into the
You
park.
are, but we
You'll
might,
have
that
the
might be
equipment.
encompassing, that might be something that gets encompassed in a bigger package that we might have private dollars to spend on instead
But the
of,
field is not something that you
No, but I
No, I
think
know.
what happens is they would do, the heavy equipment going in and out of there would be done before you did that would be the last thing you did, right?
No, but
That-
What I said was maybe a little premature, but between the budget and the scope for the Arts Center, we were looking to include the entry statement,
and
the
that
road,
round.
the road to the Arts Center, and that was it. The addition of the triangle was something that we wanted to do. So if there was, for some reason, to divert traffic or to also have the appropriate drainage in the area where we're doing the finished paving on the pond side of the triangle, if you will, we needed to keep everything at the appropriate grade. And we also wanted to envelop the amenity, the landscaped detail, so people would see that when they pulled into the Arts Center and they wouldn't have that as their first visual. So after we do the paving, Mario was going to go in there and re-landscape the island. So that was really the main reason. But as far as going up the road and
I'm not talking about going up the road. I'm talking about,
The
you're just
extent-
saying just to the field.
you're saying going left, not middle, you're saying going left.
I'm
Just to
to
the
the
field.
field, and I'm not talking about that whole parking lot, cause I understand
You're
that
saying
that's.
just that little extra
It's
bit.
terrible. It's terrible. And you have people who go play soccer there all the time. You have people who have football practice there all the time, and it's terrible.
Okay,
And
let's
so-
just, can we just figure out what that additionally would be just to get up to that field?
yeah, it's really going to be tonnage based. So
Right.
we could still continue with the purchase order execution, and I'll work it out. And before we implement anything in the field, I'll make sure that the funds are available.
Okay.
Thank you.
But in the
Thanks.
la-
Okay.
I just want to ask one question. these doors and the locks, what kind of doors are you putting in?
They were fire-rated doors. We had to have, I think, 2 or 3 fire-rated doors that.
Remote
and
locking.
Remote locking, and those front doors had to be replaced. They were really expensive.
I can see.
Yeah. A lot of expensive doors.
That's why I'm
They
asking.
were the least expensive of the expensive doors, I could tell you that much. We had bids on all, I mean, we had 3 prices on all of them.
I have
I think I
another
might, what
quick
we're
question.
adding, because the opening is gonna come sooner than later, at the end of April. There is gonna be a lot of work that still goes on after the opening that is gonna be part of the grant, and that may be this summer, that's what we're hoping for, but depending on the grant procurement, process, maybe into the fall.
Right.
But that work's gonna be ongoing, so people are not gonna be seeing a finished, Pond Arts Center project until that work is actually completed.
How does this
Okay,
compare
and-
to if we had actually, gone out to, and used outside contractors to do this, just in terms of money?
I think it worked out okay. I mean, forget the intrinsic value of the sense of ownership that I think really the guys have taken and gotten from doing the work. I think there's the true cost savings of, it was spread out over time, so it was easy to absorb into the operating budget and this general fund. It was something that was done collectively with highway, so that was nice as far as the intrinsic value. But the true cost dollars, I think if you just took this overall expense and you put it into what private dollars would have to spend on some of these materials, and the prevailing wage labor cost and the overhead and profit, if you took the scope of what was accomplished, you would have had multiple consultants that would have been necessary to prepare a bid document, to multiple contractors, because you had electrical, plumbing, everything, so a lot of even the administrative work was done internally with either, the parks crews, or Andy had, some work over there with the HVAC. So
As did you.
if I could just rough estimate, because it was kind of like a smorgasbord capital. It was the building, it was the site, it was electrical, it was a little bit of everything. You could triple the cost easily if this was a public bid.
Well, we thank you for that.
Are you leaving the pillars alone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We might do some fortifying, because they look like, we could maybe point to some things here and there, but we're not going to move or touch or anything like that.
Okay, and the landscaping in the pond will be done after the paving?
It's in process.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't been there in a couple weeks, so.
It's in process, yeah,
Okay, so they're redoing the bank over there and,
in process.
okay, I haven't seen it, I'm asking.
I
I
can show you
just-
the
It
pictures.
wasn't looking good last time I
can
saw
show you.
it.
The only reason I want to say what I want to
No,
say
I'm
is
just saying
because
it's in process.
But I know you keep
when the
saying
arts at the Arts Center opening, I'm almost certain you're going to see temporary fencing there to prevent, basically people accessing areas that could be a little dangerous. But
Okay.
it's not the nicest aesthetic, but it's definitely something that's going to be in place until the final product is there.
All right, and at the edge of the pond, there are many water irises. Are they being moved and relocated? You're not just kind of paving right over those, are you? But
I
they're
think
pretty.
I know that they were being very
Think?
careful to leave the cat nine tails.
And we're not putting a fence or anything around the pond, are we?
Yeah, there's gonna be a,
One
what's it
little
called,
piece.
the
Well,
little
we have to do-
post and rail
We're
fence?
going to propose a split rail detail as part of the grant, actually, in the areas where the drop off is significant, near the retaining wall, where we put some of the new drainage into the
Is that on the
cattail
other
area.
side of the?
It's by the
Yeah,
building.
by the building.
That's on
Not building.
that's
Not
on
in the front,
No.
not when you first come in.
Correct.
Okay.
No.
yeah, the rest of the trail along the road, and then the trail along the road into the park is going to be graded into the pond, where there'll be access there for
For
activity
people
or
fishing the way
and
they
stuff
do.
like that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
All right. Update achieved.
Thank you.
update achieved.
Okay. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
I want that.
Okay, we have no correspondence to be received and filed. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Austining hereby accepts the following monthly reports for the month of February 2017. Town Clerk's Office, Town Building Department, GE Helicopter Report, Town Supervisor's Office, and Dale Cemetery.
I have a motion? Sorry.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Yeah.
Visitor recognition.
On any item? And, okay. Hi.
Donna Shower at 84 Morningside Drive. So I just wanted to comment about some of the stuff I just heard. And just with, first, because I designed the garden there, and so I really know and love that park. Soon, there's going to be turtle crossings there, because there's a wetland over by the Sunshine Home, and then they come. Actually, one time they actually sat and stopped in one of the kids' plots, which was really, really exciting for the Head Start children to see this big turtle sort of stuck in their plot. But then they do cross the road. So when they do all the paving, I'm wondering if there's a way to put speed bumps or something to get people not to go so fast through there.
You can't go fast there. Like, you can't go
Some
fast
people
there.
do.
It's just
We're
not.
gonna go
Right
faster
now,
than
not
those
with the
turtles. Let me tell
They're
you that.
They may, but there is no
Yeah.
true ability to speed
Okay.
in that.
How about turtle crossing?
Yeah, I was thinking turtle crossing's fine. Okay.
Anyway, I wasn't here to say that, but that would be really great. And then also, right when you're going towards the tree line, there's some really great elderberry there, which I know had gotten whacked down at one point, but it's probably still there. That's a really great plant to save if possible, because I don't know what you're doing with your island plants. It'd be great if that was native plants, other than some of the stuff that was planted there by the owners back in the 1800s. They used a lot of Asian plants, so it'd be great to have the native plants there. So that's my comments for that.
Maybe, Ms. Sharrett, you could come and just tag the elderberries
Sure.
with a little, so we know, in case,
A
for
little ribbon
whatever
or
reason.
something.
What?
we don't.
A ribbon or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Once the snow goes and,
Almost gone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So if they haven't been whacked down again, I know that there were at one point, and I had showed the guys, and they were leaving them come
Possible
back
it's
up.
gone. I'm not
It
positive.
might not be. It's pretty tenacious,
Hardy?
so we'll
Okay,
see.
good. All right. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So it's a really long meeting, so I'm going to keep this as short as possible, but it's a timely subject. There was a great article in the New York Times this Sunday about leaf blowers, and I know I've brought this up previously, probably in the previous town board, but there's 15 communities in Westchester, at least. I found a 2011 report that there was 15 communities that ban leaf blowers, and they do it during a portion of time from from June to the beginning of June till like the middle of October, which allows spring cleanup and fall cleanup, which I consider a compromise because I just think they're really awful. I just wanted to give you some stats on that, and so I can give you the link to the article. You can read the whole thing. I won't read it all to you. I'll just give the highlights. Most landscapers use leaf blowers with two-stroke engines. They're light enough to carry, but they produce significant exhaust and noise. The gas and oil is mixed together, and about a third of it does not combust. As a result, pollutants have been linked to cancers, heart disease, asthma, and other serious ailments escape into the air. In 2011, Edmunds, the car reviewer, compared a two-stroke engine leaf blower with a Ford F-150 Raptor pickup truck, finding that a half hour of yard work produced the same amount of hydrocarbon emissions as a 3,887-mile drive in that Ford pickup truck. In other words, blow leaves from your yard or drive from Maplewood, New Jersey to Juneau, Alaska. So they're really, really bad environmentally. So I ask that you would consider joining the other communities in Westchester that have done this ban, because I think that it's a public health, a public nuisance, and this would be a huge benefit to reduce our town's carbon footprint. So
Is this something that we could put on for a work agenda?
Yes, it is. For
I have to
sure.
tell you personally, I really dislike leaf blowers. I think there's also a quality of life issue.
right.
The noise, literally, on a Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, because that's when the noise ordinance lists, and it's going to be the first thing you hear, and it's all over, and it's definitely I think it's a stress inducer. I mean, it just is not a relaxing thing to
But
hear.
it's really bad environmentally and horticulturally.
Yes.
It's a 200-mile-an-hour
Yeah, that's
wind, which is hurricane
unbelievable.
force wind on plants.
So
And
is-
then it compacts the soil. When they do that very heavy leaf blowing on the soil, it blows the duff. It compacts the soil, and then you get stormwater runoff.
Are there other leaf blowers that don't have,
I was
that?
just
Like,
gonna
are
say,
there less?
Are these, you said
Offensive leaf
two-stroke,
blowers?
right? So those are the
Yeah.
gasoline ones. Do
Like
they
our
have the
electric
kind that
ones?
are,
Plug-in?
You know, I am
Charge?
not the best person to ask about that.
so maybe
We use
that's
a
what we
we,
could
we
find
use a
out.
mulch mower on our lawn, and we have a huge oak tree and lots of other trees. We don't have to rake because that mulch mower breaks everything up finely, and there are landscapers out there that are retrofitting their equipment with this, so because it's much more, it's beneficial to the soil and everything not to use those leaf blowers. So.
Maybe we could
So I
find
can't give you any answers about alternatives just because it's definitely not my forte.
So
maybe
maybe
what
we
we
could
could
put
do
this
is-
on a work session.
And maybe we could
for
find
June.
somebody who knows something about different types, just so we know if there's alternatives, because we are gonna get people who are not gonna be thrilled that they
Well,
can't.
the other issue
leave
Yeah,
is-
I'm
the
not
other
getting my
issue
yard
is-
cleaned without a leaf blower.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
but
the
there
other,
even
might
though I
be-
do mulch half of it, I have 10
Right.
200-year-old trees that I don't want to take them down. But the reality is the leaves are deeper,
but they're
knee-deep.
that this is why they allow it part of the year.
Right, so
And-
that's a-
See, now that would be a different conversation.
Right.
Just completely disallowing it's not on my agenda.
No. That's why I said from June till October, so you can do
Okay.
spring cleanup and fall cleanup. This
Right.
is how. I
I'm
think the
actually
other
not a
communities-
huge fan of people using them for snow because that's annoying me.
Oh, I never
So,
even knew anyone. Did.
yeah, they've been using it for snow, so then you could actually put a winter one
But
too.
you could look at these other communities that had these same issues. They had to convince people that
Does the
to
link
change.
have,
There's a lot
does the
of-
link have a list, the
I
list
think
of
I
what
sent
they
you, I sent it out to the board.
That was
We
the
got it,
list
yeah.
was
Sent
in
you guys
that?
I mean, I happened to send it out to the board because it came up in another community and it was brought up at a supervisor's meeting.
Have you
so-
ever seen let's say the yard, at, the park in the area at Star Bethlehem Baptist Church?
Hmm?
You know,
Have I seen the yard?
yeah, the parking area,
Yes.
Yeah.
No, the parking
it
area?
has to be cleaned.
Mhm.
Now, how you gonna clean it without a blower?
Well, that's what we talk about. That's,
Not without a blower.
but that's what we
Yeah,
could
that's
talk
what we'll
about.
talk about at the
Oh,
work
oh.
session.
That's what we're talking about.
That's the kind of thing we'll
But
talk
if you,
about.
if you could do it, if you can use it in the spring and the fall, then you basically have your opportunity.
Well, it
for when
depends.
you do-
I mean, it depends, like, so if you have I think what,
If all your leaves fall in
Councilman
September.
Wiltshire is saying is if the leaves fall at a certain time and you have a parking lot that you're trying to clear and you don't have any way to clear it because you can't use a blower and you have
Right.
rain or whatever and it becomes slippery.
Or a
and
weed
that's-
whacker.
There's issues.
Right.
It's not,
Absolutely. The things
That's
we-
also
Right.
a impervious surface, so maybe there's some way to deal with that, and maybe these other communities have come upon that, because that's very different, and it's different than the yard after yard after yard having,
Is there any way that, so can we ask our lovely council to take a look at some of our surrounding areas to see what their law is? And we have the list.
We have
the list.
I think we have the list.
Have
have
that
a
list, so I have some guidance,
I will
but
say-
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
I guess I didn't see you, but I'll send it.
I think she was on it, but.
Okay.
all right, thank you for
Donna,
considering.
can
Yes.
you just look at this picture real quick?
Oh, if it's yellow, is it
We're
yellow?
not doing it.
Yes.
We are doing this?
No, this is a water lily. Right. It's a water iris. It's not, it's in the water.
Yeah.
That one's invasive.
Okay, yes. Okay. Alrighty, are there any other, anybody else here for visitor recognition? All right, fantastic. So can I have a motion to adjourn into work session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, okay, so work session. We've had a bit of a change to our agenda for tonight from what was originally published. Mr. Fritchie will not be able to join us, and the folks from Hudson Step also had to reschedule. So we have added Mr. Ron Kamen from Sustainable Westchester to come, and he'll be speaking to us in a little while. But first up is a presentation from Patrick Yost, who's going to be talking to us about JCYS's proposed batting cage upgrades, as well as he's going to discuss his request or proposal for a volunteer day at Ryder Park for one of the baseball fields. So come on up. Oh, yeah. I forgot. We had that on for a reason, remember? Okay. Have a PowerPoint. Fantastic.
You got it. I'm good.
Lost track of where I was.
What are we looking at? This is the ball field one, right?
Just happy it's not on the third floor.
You don't have to. I was there. Okay, good. I know what's going on there.
Now, will this work? Can I? Okay. All right.
Hello.
So, thank you very much. For folks who don't know me, I'm Patrick Yost. I'm the president of the Ossining Jesse Color Youth Sports, JCYS, that's what that stands for, Little League. So what I'm going to do is I'll try and go through this fairly quickly, but I think a fair number of you folks were not members of the board when we went through and did the original batting cage work.
Can you just stand a little over by the microphone? Fantastic. We can still see.
Okay. So I'll go through a little bit just for folks to just give a little bit background around the league, sort of what we're all about, talk a little bit about the existing batting cage, and then I'll go through what our proposal is. All right, just to kind of get everybody on the same page. So thank you very much for your time, appreciate it, and without further ado. So JCYS Little League it's a baseball and a softball program. So we give a little bit over 400 kids during the spring, and then we also allow kids. We've got about 44 teams this spring is what we're going to be running with. Have 5 baseball divisions for 5 through 16-year-olds, 2 softball divisions, broken down by grade. 3rd and 4th grade is one team, 5th and 6th is the other. We use a variety of town and village parks: Nelson, Veterans, Ryder, Snowden Avenue, and then we also use some Ossining School District fields as well. So we use Roosevelt, Brookside, and AMD baseball field when the high school team's not playing there anymore. Our mission is pretty simple, right? We got kind of 4 things we want to focus on. 1, we want to make sure that we give as many kids as possible a positive experience to participate in baseball and softball at whatever level they really want to play at. So we kind of offer three different things currently. 1 is recreational, focus on even playing time, teaching kids, making sure they all get the right kind of experience, and just keep them involved as long as they want to. We offer travel teams as well, which allows for the kids who want to participate a little bit more competitively against other towns, travel a little bit more focus on winning and higher level skills. And then we also offer tournament teams, which is basically a recreational all-star team to compete against try and go as far as we can in the things like the Little League World Series. All right, as part of that. Okay. Education, both sportsmanship and skills, safety and fun. Those are the 4 things we're really focused on. We're talking about Ryder Park specifically. For those who haven't been over there are 3 baseball fields. There's the front field, or Briarcliff Collier Field, is whatever you want to call it. That's the one in front that's used by the Briarcliff Little League. The middle field is also sometimes called Babe Ruth. That's for the older kids, 60-foot, 90-foot bases and a 60-foot. That's basically the equivalent of a pro-sized field. And then Finch Field on the right there is for, that's where the 11 and 12 and 9 and 10s play. All right, so just so folks kind of get a sense of what we're talking about. All right. The two fields in the back, so the ones we're talking about are the middle field and Finch. All right, that's what we're going to focus on. Those are used by anywhere from 9-year-olds up through 16-year-olds, those two fields. Over 100 games, 200 practices annually between those two. That's also used by the 7th and 8th grade, the modified team for Ossining, out of the Ossining School District. So that's where the modified team plays and practices on a regular basis. About 3 years ago, with the board of council's approval, we paid for and installed a batting cage. All right, actually it's two batting cages. It's called a Mastodon. It's low maintenance. It's a wire mesh suspended from some wires. You know, 2 70-foot cages in a single line, and the location of them is right there. Okay, so. Pardon? Where the yellow is, correct. Okay.
Two back to back.
They're in line. Yep. The best way to fit it in is it's you know, you've got basically you've got guy wires that stretch from one end to the other, and then there are 2 separate cages that hang from those. Okay. Part of you can see from this Google Maps picture that actually the dark areas inside of it, that's areas where through overuse. Okay. So and this is part of one of the issues we're trying to fix with the proposal that we're doing. So these are places where through overuse the grass has been eroded to the point where you've just got a big hunk of mud from either where the batters are or where the pitchers are standing on a regular basis. Okay. No, it's not. And when it gets wet, it gets muddy. It's becomes a bit of a safety issue, and it results in drainage issues. There's a fair amount of challenges that go along with that. Okay. But the cages get a lot of use when we're not using them for the league. They're not locked up. They're open to the public, and so you actually get if you go over there during the course of the year, you actually see a lot of people over there as well, using those in general. Okay. So the current situation is that when we built them the first time, we had a bit of a limited budget. So basically, the nets just sit on the ground. All right. They hang from the wires and then they fall to the ground. You want them to go to the ground so that the balls don't go flying all over the place. That creates some challenges for the maintenance crew, for the parks crew, because you can't drive a lawnmower through the fence, through the net. And it's these things, it's 140 feet. You're pulling up both sides of it in order to get the net through. The reality is, in order to hook them up, it takes probably about half an hour to go along and do the whole thing. And that's really difficult for the grounds crew. And so unless we timed it so that we got up there and, so the grass wasn't getting cut, you can see where it was getting eroded because of overuse in a particular area to get muddy. And so in the end, you end up with something that doesn't look good. It's a little bit unsafe. You get really tall grass. Found some snakes in there towards the end of the summer, and it's just just not a good situation where you want 10-year-olds using a batting cage that's like that. Okay. Just doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
I don't know.
So it does matter.
It is. It's right against the.
The water snake.
Turtles crossing. That kind of
Okay. So what we're proposing to do is just within the existing footprint of the batting cages, so the yellow lines, we're looking to level it out. We're looking to frame out the footprint of the 2 sections of the batting cages, right, with the Belgian blocks. That's why I brought this. This is what we're intending to use, so you can see what we're planning on using, or what we'd like to use.
sticking up like that, right? They're gonna be.
No. It'll be partially put into the ground. Okay.
Mower could go over?
No. So the point is that they'll have to edge around it. Okay.
Just asking.
Yep.
But it's gonna create an edge, whereas now there's none that exists.
There's no edge, okay? We were over,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'll show you a picture of kind of the height that it would kind of go to, okay? I've got one in here. Talk through, we're gonna install some drainage aids to make sure that, even though we'll have a bit of a, we'll have the Belgian block frame around there, we'll make sure that there's adequate drainage through it so that the water, any water that's running off of the field, can get down into the culvert. So, which is this drainage culvert right here, okay? So we'll make sure that we put the appropriate drainage aids in there. We'll fill the base, we'll put the dirt back in, we'll cover it with some stone dust, and then ultimately, hopefully, we're going to try and work with Boston School District to get some leftover turf and put it over the top of that. All right, so what you have is something that is gonna stick around, it's, low maintenance, it's not gonna go, it's not we're not putting in railroad ties, so they're not gonna have to get replaced in 8 years or something like that. And so that's kind of what the proposal is, okay?
Pigs don't like turf.
No, not so much, but there's no grass for them to hide in, so we can nail it down. We went through a few things when we were considering this. Safety, we wanted to make sure we maintained the current footprint. We didn't go anywhere. There's a low profile, so it really doesn't change the risk of running into things. The nets have been up there for 2 years now, 2 seasons, and we've never had anybody run into anything throughout all the use. It actually decreases the chance of the net tripping on the net because sometimes it tends to flare out, and so now it's going to be attached at the bottom on the inside of the stone so that it's going to just be sitting fairly tight, and that'll be good. We've got licensed contractors lined up to do the work. Low maintenance, draining conduit, no need to cut the grass inside the netting. They will need to edge, exactly what you were talking about. And what we do at the end of every season is that the net comes down. So we take the net, we roll it up, we cover it.
How are you gonna okay, so I'm confused.
Yep.
If you're gonna have the net come down.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Okay.
So if that comes down.
Yep.
And you have the tie, the stone.
Yep.
You said it would. You
So
said
the- so
the net
the-
will be under the stone.
So the net will then. So they're using wood here.
Okay.
So imagine that instead we're going to have stone. Okay. So we're going to have the stone there. We will attach the netting on the inside of the stone blocks. So if this is the outside facing the field, we'll tie the we'll tie it down.
Kind of tuck it in.
We'll tuck it in. Well, essentially what we'll do is we'll tuck it in on the inside.
I'm trying to figure out what happens when the season's over and how does that.
So it won't be a permanent attachment, all right? Well, I mean, we'll be able to, because you can just put kind of U-hooks in and put them into the dust, okay, to hold it down. And then at the end of every season, what we'll do is, so you can see how they're attached along the top with just hooks. We basically go down, we unhook it, we put it on the ground, we roll it up, we cover it in tarps, and we take it over. We've got some sheds over at Vet's Batting Cage. So we put it in there over the course of the season. So what we'll have is we'll just have a flat. Yeah.
I think the only issue I'm trying to figure out is at the time that you guys came and I was here. The only thing that was going to be up off season was going to be those black things.
Yes.
And so what would happen would be basically it would be kind of flat because you didn't have turf and you didn't have any kind of lift.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of blended. And if people go there during the winter and the snow, and so I'm just trying to figure out,
Yep.
what
Yeah.
happens. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just
Right.
trying to figure out what the implications of the change are, and
Right.
if there is any in
Yeah.
terms of.
So I mean, I think for us when we were looking at it, the main substantive change is that you'll have a couple inches of stone that are in the shape of 2 rectangular bases that'll be there at the end of the season. Okay.
Right.
You'll still have the drainage. You'll still have everything flow through. They're off the field so that when people are running the dogs and things, they're not going to be in the way.
Barely going over there.
Yeah, they're not going to necessarily be going over there.
Right.
It's off of the, if you go back up to the big picture, right? the area, this is sitting over here, right? So the reality is off season, that's fairly low traffic.
Right.
There's not a whole lot going on over there, right? You've got to work your way. If you're going over there, you've got to work your way. If you're going to walk, the path goes behind the field down to the lake and around around behind the other field. So the walking path kind of goes around that way. Okay. We talked about the maintenance, and then our proposal is that we're gonna bear the cost of doing all the work. So
And licensed contractor.
yes,
And the town gets to see the paperwork.
sure.
It's what we ask for everybody.
That's fine. We've already got the quote from the contractor. So, and he was out there having when we went out to have a conversation with Chris and Mario, and the contractor was out there. Yeah, Scott. So.
Now, I really want the paperwork then.
Okay. And I think Mario and the contractor kind of came to agreement on what would work and what wouldn't work, and they made some changes actually while we were there. So they've had the conversation already.
So Mario's on board.
Yep, Chris is
and
on board.
Chris is on board. Yep.
Okay.
I brought this up at the recreational advisory board meeting the other week, and there were no issues there either.
Cool. All right, great.
Okay. So that's the
Bev,
proposal.
Any other questions about this? Then we can move on to.
No, any questions, anyone?
Wanna talk about the volunteer day?
Yeah. So our proposal is that, looking for ways to kind of help in support of, the Parks and Rec crews have done a great job at the fields over the course of the last couple of years, really made some significant improvements. And, one of the ways that we want to try and get people involved and get the kids involved in terms of doing some work where it makes sense is to try and put in a volunteer work day to do some very specific tasks to specific fields that would help just improve the overall the look and feel of it. We're actually working with Chris and proposing work at 3 different areas: the lower vets batting cage, and then Ryder, Finch Field specifically. And so what we're proposing to do is a series of things. So at Finch, specifically, we're looking to repaint the dugouts. When they were initially built, there was a partial paint job done, and it was so we need to actually redo that. We'd like to install bird screens in the ceilings of the dugouts. They're fairly, having the birds going in and out of there all season with the kids all the time tends to create some health issues. Repair some of the fascia board on the dugouts. The benches have been there for a while. They need to be sanded, replaced, and do some work there. We're going to paint an O on the outside, do garbage cleanup, and then we'd like to build offsite and install some helmet boxes, so to put batting helmets in, so that they're not laying around on the ground during the middle of games. Just little boxes for everyone to put their helmets in when they come in. From that standpoint, and then in the middle field at Ryder, we want to help support the installation. We've got a removable fence that we can use, that we can put in, and we'd like to help put that in and put that out there so that.
What kind of removable fence?
Basically, it's a snow fence. It's like 4 feet high.
Not like that orange thing that they do? Like
Yeah,
in
at Nelson, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is.
Does it have to be orange?
Sorry.
What color? Yes.
I'm
that
just
makes
laughing.
We already bought it. Yes, we bought it. We bought an orange one. Sorry.
It has to be orange?
It doesn't have to be, but actually it helps. It's a safety kind of issue for the kids.
Yeah, if it's blue,
Because if you're running, try to catch a ball, you need to be able to see it out of your peripheral vision to be able to stop.
I was persuaded.
And so, a 13-year-old kid running like this, looking at the ball, he needs to be able to see something out the side, or otherwise he's going to go plow straight through it. So.
Not there that long either. I mean, it's a few months.
No, and it's a similar thing where at the end of the season we'll pull it up and put it away.
Can we at least get a green one for the beach this year?
Okay, so that's what we'd like to. So that's our proposal, is to do a volunteer work day, and we'll pay for the materials, and we'll get the people to do it under the supervision of the Parks and Rec crew. So
Sounds like fun. All right, fantastic.
So are you reaching out to the schools for the kids who need community service,
yeah,
or the churches or temples?
Once we get the okay, we'll do that, right? So
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. If there are no questions, other questions from the board, then we can move on to our next presentation. I don't think, is there anything we have to do to, we have to approve or accept? Do we have to do any kind of, anything written up? For the volunteer day? Do we have to do anything for the batting cage? We might have to accept a resolution and,
Yeah, I mean, there should probably be some paperwork provided, as was discussed. And you could just do a resolution, you know, acknowledging that it's happening and that you're authorizing it, subject to them providing the requisite paperwork to the satisfaction of the council to the town or something like that.
just try to write something
Yeah.
up of what's happening and that we have,
Just like some written description plus the copy of the insurance of the contractor.
Yeah.
Sorry, I assume that would be, a written description of the
Yeah.
work to be done, insurance of the contractor with the appropriate language included in it.
Yeah,
and
just adding the town as
As a named
as an
insured.
additional insured, should be fine. But yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay.
And I don't think it should be too cumbersome. I mean, if the town board was inclined, I'm sure you could probably vote on it next week if you wanted to.
okay? We're inclined.
Okay, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Okay, very nice. All right, so I think the next up we have Mr. Ron Kamen, who's going to present to the board about the potential for a clean fleet program in the town and some electric vehicle charging stations. I couldn't come up with that phrase. Suddenly seems to be getting late fast. Okay. Shift over again. Okay. Another little presentation, so. Fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much. I tend to speak a little fast, so please feel free. I'm a kind of fast presenter. I like to get through a lot of stuff real quickly. Everybody's familiar with Sustainable Westchester?
Yes.
Right? Okay, great. So I'm the Clean Transportation Project Coordinator. I'm a consultant, basically, that was brought in to help develop a plan for all the municipalities, including you guys, helping to figure out how to deal with transportation in particular. It's kind of an interesting day because today, March 21st, Governor Cuomo just announced a $70 million electric car rebate and outreach initiative. I don't know if you've heard about it on the news today, but basically this program, Drive Clean Rebates, provides up to $2,000 for residential people who buy cars, right, to buy electric vehicles. That supports the governor's goal and the state's goal of greenhouse gas emissions of 40% by 2030. The largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions is the transportation sector, which accounts for nearly 40% of the emissions in New York State, so 40% of all the pollution from New York State. So in the New York State Energy Plan, there's a 2030 goal of a 23% in energy consumption in buildings, 50% of the generation of electricity from renewables, 40% reduction in greenhouse gases from 1990 levels, and an overall 2050 goal of 80% carbon reduction, just to give you a perspective on this. So the goal of the Clean Transportation Project is to reduce municipal fleet fuel and maintenance costs by at least 25% or more, cut municipal transportation greenhouse gas emissions, upgrade municipal fleets with cost-effective and mission-compatible electric vehicles, so make sure it's the right stuff for the right place, and then put you guys and other municipalities in leadership roles in terms of developing clean transportation models. Okay? So when you take a look, so there were 6 climate action studies in Westchester for the folks on the bottom there, and what they found was that fleets are actually responsible for about 60% of those municipalities' greenhouse gas emissions, which also means about 60% of their energy cost. You guys are, might be a little bit more, a little bit less. You got to take a look at your own, but pretty much it's there. When you take a look at the average U.S. vehicles, the Department of Energy found that the majority of our trips are actually less than 6 miles, which is pretty incredible when you think about it, and 90% of all our trips are actually less than 30 miles. Right? When you put that in perspective, well, electric vehicles now travel an average of at least 80 miles on a full charge. That's more than enough for the daily needs of most fleet applications. From 2008 to 2016 across the country, little did we know, but ever since the launch of the Tesla Roadster in 2008, we now have nearly, actually it's over 600,000 plug-in electric vehicles today. There's over 2 million across the world. When you take a look at what's happening with this industry, what you see is exponential growth. That's the world growth. In 2016, there was 40% growth in the U.S., 70% growth across the planet. And the reason for that is that prices are dropping 18% per year. So as prices keep dropping, people want more and more of them. By 2020, we're expected that electric vehicles are going to be cheaper to buy, 10 times cheaper to maintain. And what you're going to see is that curve basically shows where on the top left piece an SUV is currently at, where the average is going to be, and where the cost of electric vehicles is going to be happening over the next few years. So costs are coming down, people are buying more and more of them, the technology is coming in. Part of the reason is because electric vehicles are about 5 times more efficient than gas vehicles. So when you take a look at how much efficiency, electric vehicles, gas, 80% of what we burn basically gets lost as heat. In an electric vehicle, you have efficiencies of 90 to 95%. You take a look at maintenance. What you see is gas cars have over 2,000 different moving parts, transmissions, drive shafts, et cetera, et cetera. Electric vehicles generally have less than 20. Major difference in maintenance. Take a look at cost savings, and generally you find that it costs less than half as much to travel the same distance in an electric vehicle than in a conventional gas car. And when you take a look at what does that mean, it means the equivalent of buying gas at $1 a gallon or less. You take a look at gas versus fuel costs, and if you took a vehicle traveling 10,000 miles a year at an average 20 miles per gallon, it would take 500 gallons of gas, which at $2 a gallon, which is pretty good price, I would say, that's $1,000 a year. If you take an electric vehicle, you do that same 10,000 miles a year, you get 4 kilowatt hours per mile it takes. You get every mile it takes 4 kilowatt hours, so it takes about 2,500 kilowatt hours to do that same travel. Even at 25 cents a kilowatt hour, which is the highest rate being paid in the state today, that's $625 per year. That's a 37% savings. And when you start combining that with some of the solar prices that we're going to see with the buyers group at 15 cents a kilowatt hour, well, we're looking at prices that mean almost a 2/3 reduction in fuel cost. And then you add in on the maintenance costs and some other costs as well. Everyone's pretty familiar now with the Tesla, right? Came out 0 to 60, 2.5 seconds. Pretty amazing little vehicle, right? I mean, zip, zip, zoom, if you've ever been in one. But did you know there are now worldwide competitions, Formula E races? Little did you know, right? And look, who's that? Leonardo DiCaprio in a Ventura automobiles holding the world land speed record at 300 miles an hour. And if you'd like to go to this website, fiaformula.com, you too, you could have been in Buenos Aires last month seeing one, or in Mexico City this coming month on April 1st, or in Monaco around the world. These races are starting to happen. It's making electric vehicles very sexy and hot. Tesla Model 3, the new one that's about to come out. You may recall, you may have heard, $35,000 is the price point there. They took $1,000 deposit from 400,000 people without the car being around, without anybody seeing it, without any idea about what it's really going to be. $400 million worth of deposits. There is a pent-up demand happening all around this country and all around the world for these types of vehicles, and Tesla's set the rage. But what we're seeing is that these vehicles are disrupting the whole basis of competition. And with Tesla and all the other vehicles, we're now getting the performance of a Porsche at the cost of a Buick. On the road today, what we're seeing is you got BMW with a vehicle, the i3 for $44,000. You got Chevy Bolts, you got Fiats out there, Ford Focus, Hyundais, Kias, Mercedes, Mitsubishis, Nissans. I mean, basically every major manufacturer either has or soon will have electric vehicles on the road. It's going to be very highly competitive. In a fleet study that was done for California, California's been way ahead of the rest of the country. We did a study of just disadvantaged communities across California, and they found that 80% of the vehicles tracked could be replaced with electric vehicles, 90% of the sedans, 50% of the pickup trucks, and if each fleet replaced the vehicles with the best fitted electric vehicle, the fleets would save an average of nearly 25% of the estimated total cost of ownership over the life of the vehicles. So not only is it sleek, is it hot, is it fast, is it low maintenance, but in addition, there's tremendous cost-saving opportunities that we're looking at. Philadelphia, City of Philadelphia is adding plug-in hybrid vehicles to its police department for community outreach. They're going to have 17 plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Those are standard gas hybrids with plug-in capability. On a full charge, those will go 22 miles before the gas engine kicks in, or they get the equivalent of 97 miles per gallon. New York City. New York City's one step closer to reaching its goal of creating the largest electric municipal fleet in the country. City's reached an agreement to acquire 1,000 all-electric, pure electric vehicles by the end of 2017. These new electric vehicles will assist the city in reaching its objective of cutting municipal vehicle emissions in half by 2025. Los Angeles. BMW is leasing the LAPD 100 of its I3 all-electric vehicles, which they're using for community outreach and other police businesses. Those BMWs go 80 to 100 miles on one electric charge. They're available with a gas engine extender that increases the range to 150 miles. And how much do you think the lease might be on something like that? $387 a month. There you go. Pretty good guess. There you go. Price is right, right? So what we're seeing is municipalities leading, and in January 13th of this year, we saw 4 U.S. cities looking to make a massive order of electric cars. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland put together an RFI to automakers for what could have become one of the biggest electric car orders ever, 24,000 vehicles. The goal was to show the purchasing power of local governments in the EV markets. City said they're aiming to cut greenhouse gas emissions, decrease reliance on fossil fuels, improve air quality, and reduce fuel and maintenance costs by an average of 37%. So that was pretty massive, right? But then, on March 17th, 30 cities all came together and now exploring a $10 billion electric car purchase. And while the federal government is backing off of vehicle emissions on carbon dioxide and fuel efficiency standards, these 30 cities and other municipalities joining in are making a major purchase of municipal electric cars for their fleets, and they're purchasing 114,000 electric vehicles. So the demand is coming from people like you on the bottom. And that's really where the leadership needs to come from and what's going to keep making things happening. Give you a sense of what else is coming. So Ford, their news, they're adding the Ford F-150 to the next year and a half or two, the Mustangs, Transits, et cetera, et cetera. 7 of 13 new electrified vehicles coming in the next 5 years. And to give you a sense, that's a $4.5 billion investment that Ford is making in electrified vehicles by 2020. Again, every major manufacturer is stepping up and doing the same sort of thing. So we're going to soon see around electric vehicle pickup trucks. We're going to see all different types of vehicles, from delivery trucks, et cetera. The LAPD is going to be testing a super fast Tesla Model S police car this year. School buses are starting to make some inroads as this as well, which is really an interesting technology. All different kinds, again, of vehicles doing all sorts of different things. And one of the things that's making it happen right now, and the thing that I'm here to speak to you about mostly, is New York State and the grants. New York State, before today's announcement, had $3 million. It has $3 million in municipal grants. There's grants that are due March 31st. It's first come, first serve. The $3 million are going to municipalities for the purchase of or lease of clean vehicles and infrastructure projects which support the public use of those clean vehicles. The grants, basically, for a purchase or a 3-year lease, it's a $5,000 rebate for vehicles with an electric range of 50 miles or more. And then there's charging infrastructure grants, which cover up to 80% of the cost of putting in these electric chargers, and those have to be used primarily, but don't have to be used exclusively for public charging. So you can have your municipal fleets plug in at different times, but as long as you keep it available for the public, you're able to get 80% of the cost covered from these New York State grants. The Office of General Services did an aggregate EV electric vehicle purchase this year in 2017, and the winner was a Nissan Leaf, which gets 84 miles per charge. Pretty sweet little vehicle there, holds 6. That Leaf had a list price of about $32,000. The discount from OGS is $10,000, meaning that the aggregate price is $22,000. When you add in the grant for $5,000 more, you're winding up with a net price of $17,000. Pretty significant. Interestingly enough, what we also did, Sustainable Westchester, is we put together a municipal lease for people. So it's a 5-year, 60-month lease. It's got a $1 buyout at the end of it. The payments are $365 a month. Annual payments, therefore, $4,380. 5-year payments of slightly less than the first-year payment of $22,000. And the reason is that we negotiated with the lease company that they take the tax credits and pass along the benefits, and then basically wind up with a zero-interest lease to the municipalities. Take the ZEV grant, which you still get for $5,000, and your net 5-year payments, again, become less than $17,000. Or look at it another way, if you did this, you took a first-year payment of $4,380, the grant gets you $5,000, so there's no impact on this year's budget. No cash out, no impact on the budget, net impact is zero. For the Nissan Leaf, yeah, for the Nissan Leaf. Mm-hmm.
Why would we get that car?
Because that's what won the OGS aggregation. Yeah, that's the one that won the OGS aggregate purchase discount. Okay. And then the charging stations, 80% grant. They are due next Friday, these grants, so just to give you a sense. So total installed cost all in for these stations is about 20 grand, but the state gives you 16, which means that the net cost is 4. We took a look, and basically there's 3 parks where you guys could put these pretty easily in a nice visible space that would be highly publicized. And then the next wave after, you start thinking about the long range. So this is an electric cargo van, which can also be used for a maintenance vehicle. And then this is a transit van for senior citizens and others that holds up to 16 people and goes about 100 miles on a charge. Just to give you a sense, over 300,000 miles, which is the life of the van, basically you can wind up saving just on gas alone about 100 grand when you start adding it all up. The next phase also that we're looking at once we get through some of the fleet things is to start putting together community group buying things. So as the municipalities start leading, what we want to do is start offering programs to residents. Program in Colorado cut the Nissan Leaf's price by $8,300. Then when you got together all the different incentives, basically the residential price wound up being less than $13,000. They were able to take advantage of certain state initiatives that hopefully will get into place in New York eventually too. And then what we really want to do is line you and other people up for this settlement, right? So you guys know what happened with VW, right, where they had their little problem and they had all the settlement piece on lying and et cetera, so multi-billion-dollar program. New York's share of that is $117 million. So what we want to do basically is start getting people into leadership positions, lining folks up so that we can keep taking advantage of more and more of these programs, keep rolling out this technology, keep saving folks a lot of money. The town of Ossining, we're looking at potentially 2 first steps. One, a municipal lease of the Nissan Leaf. So it'll be a 5-year lease, net zero 2017 fiscal impact, reduced fuel and maintenance costs, and a net town 5-year payments of about $17,000.
And again, just for everybody's benefit, just for everybody's benefit, we're proposing this for the building inspector. John Hamilton currently serves in that position, and he has a sedan right now that is at the end of its useful life, which we were planning to replace next year. But because of all of the incentives and the benefit that we believe it could offer us to start introducing electric vehicles into our municipal fleet, we think it makes sense to do this on a lease basis for starting this year. So again, it would have no fiscal impact this year as we were not planning, and it would start next year when we were planning to replace that vehicle. And if for any reason we find that this isn't the right vehicle for the right job, we would have the opportunity to switch it for somebody else to use in the future. That's that. And then
Step 2 is just up to 3 electric vehicle charging stations, Cedar Lane, Ingalls Park, and Ryder Park. Each one would net cost the town $4,000 out of pocket, thereabouts, and times 3 of them would be $12,000. So, but you'd have 3 very highly visible. They'd be on national websites. People would you'd put signage up to let people know that this is your first step of doing this sort of thing. It's on national websites. People would have search engines. Would bring them to the parks as well, showing that where the electric vehicles charging.
All right, talk to me about charging station in
Yes,
a
ma'am.
flood zone.
You know, you want to keep it above the floodplain for sure. So where's the flood zone?
The entire Engle Park?
Entire Engle Park is a flood zone. Oh, okay.
Just asking.
Yeah, no, it's a really good thing. So
It's
We-
also our parking for you know, we have a parking lot there.
We have a parking lot, but could the electrical components be?
oh yeah, they are.
5
They are
feet high?
Yeah, they are. They are
Or
generally
like our
high.
boat club rewired the entire thing with 6 feet.
Yeah, I mean, actually, now that I'm remembering the park, you moved some of the boxes for. I guess you have.
Right. Yeah, we moved everything up.
Everything up, right? Yeah.
Is
So
that a
these are already up,
possibility? Would
but
that
yeah,
work?
absolutely, sure. Yeah, sure.
so
It's
there's-
a
We have
good
to talk
question.
about
Great
that.
question. No, it's a really good question.
So the proposed spots for where they would go and in the park is at Ryder, they're, right when you pull into the park on the left, there's some spots right there, right near, just past our, shop is on the right, and then if you go a little farther into the park on the left, there are about 8 to 10 spots right there on the left, and there's a pole right there that we could tie into. And it's got access, you know, easily, people could easily walk up to the pavilion, to the playground, or you could, you know, walk down to the field. So you could be conceivably charging your vehicle when your kids are playing sporting events, or you're at an event at a pavilion, or you can still pretty easily walk to North State Road. The other proposal in Cedar Lane Park would be right outside of the ice house. We think it's a good fit because we have our community gardeners, we have our arts community, and we think that also kind of jives with a sense of sort of first, you know, early adapters for electric vehicles.
Where's the ice house? Is
Ice
that
house is the-
across from the Shine House?
What was the Shine House? Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so here's my only
And there would be
question.
2 spots there.
Okay, so my only question, the Lewis, the Engle Park, actually, I could see because we have kind of like a parking lot. I don't know where you were thinking, but I kind of could see it. And I actually could see it in Ryder where you're talking about, because that's not utilized a whole lot in that, like, people don't really pull in that much there. So it wouldn't, I think people could still get in and out, because by the way, the camps.
Well, no, they're in, it's identified parking spaces already. We're not making it
I
up.
understand, but it's not a, it's not, I don't think, I'm thinking in my mind, and I don't think it's gonna cause any issues, because
right.
people don't tend to go in there that much. If they wanted to, they won't be in the way, because there's a lot of in and out for camps, so I think
How long does it take to charge?
it makes,
You know, so part of it is how long do you want to let people stay, right? So you don't necessarily want somebody to go down to the park and stay there, so you put your own restrictions on how long they can stay. Depending on the vehicle, you know, these are level 2 chargers, so it's not 110 volt, it's 220, like your oven or your dryer, electric dryer, that level. So usually it's, you know, 3 to 4 hours gets you a pretty full charge. But you know, you can do an hour, you can do 2 hours, you can limit it.
For one car?
Yeah.
How
Now,
many
if you want
cars
to go
can
to the
plug in at
fast
once?
charges, but those are where
You know, I have to get
when you
my
start
laps
doing
where
the-
I can get
when you
them
start
these
doing the
days.
fast charge, so the next level is called a level 3, and those are the ones that Tesla and other people have, but those are a whole level much more expensive. So, you know, my recommendation to people is you know, this is kind of the thing that you're getting your feet wet. You're able to charge your vehicle, so as you start to build your own fleet, you charge your fleet overnight with it. You let the public do some charging. It's not a lot. You decide how you want to get the technology out there and promote it, but you use it really as a publicity piece as much as anything else. So
Mike,
This
so,
wait,
well,
this
I was
charging
in the
station
middle of-
supports how many cars at a time? Just one?
two cars.
Two,
Yeah, it's
okay.
two ports.
So
yeah.
my concern about Cedar Lane, where you're thinking, is that once Cedar Lane Arts Center starts and your garden starts, there's no room there.
Yeah, there actually is. There's 2 spots that Mario identified that are butted up against the ice house right along the side of it. So there are 2 spots. It's not in the road. It's not in the way. I mean,
But you
Paul-
have
Paul,
to
you
get
went that,
into there
right?
now.
You saw where we're talking about.
You
Doesn't
don't think that
remember.
there's
I
a
don't- I don't
problem
know.
with
It's not a
traffic
problem.
coming in and out?
So as you go into that area, right, over on the right is the art center, is that what you call it now? And on the left is the ice house, what was the
Yeah.
ice house? So on the left, basically, from the road, there's this space that's big enough for 2 cars to park parallel to the building, so you're not pulling into the building, you're parking parallel to the building, and that's where you would that's where Mario thought the charger would be good. The thing that makes it also helpful is that you're about to put in floors and everything else, so it's a great time to do the electric for that before all the floors and everything else gets in, so.
But I'm trying to figure out if you have traffic coming in and traffic going out of what is now kind of bottlenecks, because at this point there isn't a lot of traffic that happens there now, but there will be. There's
There is.
appropriate way.
Yes. There is, for sure.
I have reservations. I'd like you to show me where it is and prove it to me. I'm just gonna say, and where in Lewis Engle?
It would be in we have that bank of parking spots. It would be in
Park
that.
use parking?
So again, the
Park use
problem is you have something that's gonna take 4 to 5 hours, which is gonna take up a spot that there's very few, I mean, people try to park there all the time. There's not a lot of free space there.
It doesn't have to be only, I mean, it could.
How low do you let people park there now?
I don't think we have any restriction.
Oh, you have no restriction?
We have no restriction, but
Okay.
at the point where you are forcing someone to stay in a spot for a particular amount of time due to the need for charging, now you are restricting the movement.
That's only if
And
they
there's
fully
only-
charge their vehicle. Not everybody is gonna
I
necessarily
understand.
do that.
You're,
right?
I understand that, but you're putting in place something that's very, how many spots are there, Liz?
There are not that many. I think there's 13, but it's very overcrowded.
It's overcrowded.
There are people who try to come down for lunch and don't have a spot, so they end up, instead of walking into the park, sitting in one of the station and staying in their car so that if somebody comes along with a ticket book, they leave.
It's
So we
very-
do have limited parking already, which we were gonna try
I
to
think,
address at some point.
while I think it makes sense in terms of like I get it, right? There's a train station, I get the location, that makes sense, but the actual putting it in those spots I think is not a good idea.
But on the flip side, people aren't gonna stay for all 4 hours, most likely, in those spots. I mean, they're not gonna come to charge. They are gonna come for lunch and plug their car in or come to use the water
You don't know
spray
that they're
park.
not gonna come to charge. If you have only, if you're not going to Ryder Park and you're not going to Cedar Park, cause there are a lot of people who are not going there, but you can be there,
But
you
most
are.
people-
I mean, I choose
but
the
most
river every
people are
time, but-
charging their cars probably at their homes at night, overnight, right? So they're getting extra charge. This isn't where they're doing their
But we're
main source
talking
of
about
charging.
a 5-year, 10-year, future year trend, right? I mean, that's what we want.
So, just a couple of things, I think those are really valid points. So, one, you guys can decide how long someone can park anywhere. In particular, these spots are really controllable.
Okay.
And you have access to programming so that you can charge for that too, so.
So we could say only half an hour.
You could say half an hour,
an
you
hour.
could say, or an hour, or whatever
Okay.
you want to say. And, or you can charge, a fee that makes it, prohibitive for somebody. They're like, one of the things is that what you should have there is signage that it's really clear. The only one who can park there are people with electric vehicles, and they have to be plugged in. So it's not just they have electric vehicles, they're plugged in. And if you're charging them to plug in, well, then, people probably aren't going to stay quite as long. And if
that
you
won't-
say, you're only allowed for X amount of time, you can also program that into the meter too. So, it's really, it's an app, so you can do whatever you want with it.
So I guess we'd have to talk about that, because where that would make sense for others in Lewis Engle, you don't want to say you only can be here if you can charge, because now you're taking up one of the few 13
Right, well,
spots,
I mean, I
right?
guess what I'd like to find out is if we could carve out 2 additional spots over there, which we might be able to do.
I don't know where, but okay.
Right next to it.
So my question is to Mr. Frioli, because you are,
Still here. You have to
eh,
answer questions.
that's right. Well, and you are
Thanks.
a step, like, you have much experience with fleets, right? So what do you think, what's your opinion of this whole transfer of fleets towards or dabbling in electrical?
That's a pretty broad question. I think if you have
what do you think for you in your role in the village as somebody who is kind of in charge and oversees some of these departments?
Well, that's a sticky.
What is your feeling in terms of how beneficial that's going to be?
The use of the charging stations or operation of electric vehicles?
Converting fleets into electric vehicles. Are there specific parts of your DPW or your parks that you could see would be more aligned with something like that, or your one-offs where people are driving around what was a sedan and now, I mean, is there a thought process that you have in terms of where this would more easily fit and be beneficial than others?
I think the appropriate use right now, with technology where it stands today, is more for the non-field construction-oriented vehicles, like a building inspector or an assessor or anybody else in the administrative staff that does not have road-based work or site-based work.
Got it. Okay, appreciate that.
If I may add, since I'm up here,
Please.
the village does have a charging station, and the use that we see is it does fluctuate.
That the town installed. I
Yes,
believe, right?
correct.
Okay.
Right. The town village charging station at the operations center. The use that we see, because we do monitor it, because we do charge. We have an account set up with the Power Authority, and we get reimbursed for the use through that. I don't know specifics. I just know that it's in operation right now, and we set the rate, and the use we see is usually in the evening. It's really only like 2 or 3 different people that come there that know that it's there. But you're right, it is locatable on GIS. Anybody can find it because it's advertised. It's usually people doing spot charges, and they coordinate it because the folks that have these cars typically know exactly where they're going and how many miles it is, and they'll come and they'll do a 45-minute charge because they need to get 50 miles. And they know that that's what they need to get home, and then they charge it at home, whether it's either cheaper there or they just rather be home and waiting, you know. But I just think that a place like a park, it lends to someone that has an electric vehicle that know they're going to be somewhere for a duration, like a 2 or 3 hours, to say, well, I'm going to take my EB down there because I'm going to be there for 3 hours, and I know I'm going to get a parking space because there's a charging station there, and I'm going to leave it, and it's going to charge while I'm at Engle Park, or I'm watching my son's baseball game or something like that. So I think it's a
So
good
what do we
spot.
currently charge for that?
Well, I was going to say, can somebody tell me about the charging? Like, how do we? What's the-
Financial
saying,
charging,
yeah, how
not
much we-
charging.
Yeah, not the charging
back
plugging in,
from.
the charges of the,
it's
but that might be your,
I can't say. I could say that
he
it's.
might be able to say.
Ron can say how
Well, I
much
don't know.
we're gonna-
Okay, you can speak to. Yeah.
I don't want to take your mic, though.
Have at it. Let me raise the mic for you, though.
Yeah, so you can do it any number of ways. It's programmable. It's programmable by station. It's programmable by customer. So you can charge. Some people don't charge at all for a little while to sort of get the technology out there, see how it goes. That's your call. Some people charge a flat rate for just hooking up. So as soon as you hook up, it's $3 or $5 or whatever, and boom, that's it. Other people do per kilowatt hour. So you figure out what your kilowatt hour charge is. You put on an administrative fee. You put on some profit if you want, and you charge per kilowatt hour. So there's any number of ways, and it's something to think about, especially if you have different needs in different places. Well, do you want to encourage it here because you want to get people seeing that, hey, this is something that it makes sense in a lot of different ways, right? It makes sense environmentally. It makes sense overall financially as you start to get into it, as the prices keep coming down to buy these things, and they're now getting cost competitive with other cars. If I could sell you a car that gives you the equivalent of $1 a gallon gas, because every time you went to this, go to drive, it's $1 a gallon versus going to the gas station for $2 or $2.50. Pretty soon, and if it's less maintenance because you have no oil changes, you have no transmission, it's all torque and it's all high performance. Boy, now all of a sudden it's like we start transitioning society, and that's what this is really out. And it's sort of like your first steps in what's the right thing for you guys, what's the right thing in each location, what do you want to promote it, you want to chart, you want to pay, you want to get people paying for it, you want to encourage, you want to discourage certain habits, you get some flexibility, and it's an app, so you can literally change it as you go, which is a nice thing.
Okay, well, I think it might be good to try out a car. What's the exchange on the battery? What's the battery life on that? Electric vehicles tend to need replacing of batteries,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's great.
What
Yeah,
does that
they're
cost?
warranted for like 100 grand, for 100,000 miles, so that's the first thing, which, you know, and
So
you
you'll
guys,
replace all my batteries for 100,000 miles.
after 100,000 miles, they're warranted for 100,000 miles.
I don't know if he does either.
Yeah, and I don't. So I'm just a representative. My job
Yeah.
is to represent people
Okay.
that want to do this. So I'm not here representing the manufacturers or anybody else. So, but you know, so at some point you may need to replace batteries, and they're not cheap at this point. But the prices are coming down, as you saw, really dramatically. So 5 years from now, what are the prices going to be? I don't know. But at that point too, you know, you could decide you want to keep the car, you want to get rid of the car, you want to get new batteries. The batteries will last, you know, a pretty long time, and probably the batteries are going to last like 10 years or more. But they're warranted for 100,000. So,
Okay, so within the first 100,000, we're not responsible for replacing it. Okay.
yeah.
So I guess my overall question is, so I'm thinking about, I know a building that was built 40 years ago that has electric heat, and it's the most expensive building in like, I think the whole greater town of Ossining in terms of heat. So I understand the broad implications, and I like the idea of dabbling, but so what happens when we get to this place where there's enough fleet that people are using electric that now we get to jack electric up and we're losing Indian Point? So I don't know what we do about, you know, heating costs and electric costs and all that. So
It's great.
what's
It's
that
great.
trend?
Great question. So if
I
you
love
take-
when I ask a great question.
Yes, I always have asked great questions so far, so just keep on the roll. You're doing great. So, you know, I've been in energy all my career. So just, you know, and I started out actually looking at a whole bunch of different things, specific rate increases, and where were the rate increases coming from. Where they really came when I started my career was nuclear power plants, because they were going to create electricity too cheap to meter. It didn't quite work out that way. It actually, after it bankrupted the Long Island Lighting Company and knocked out a couple bunch of others, and a $300 million plant came in at $7 billion. It was a really bad technology. For a lot of different reasons. What we've done in this state, though, is we've moved over the last 15 years now from a pretty hefty coal piece, where we had like 20% of electricity actually coming from coal-fired power plants. We have almost no coal left in the state at all right now. Most of it has shifted to gas, but you're right, we're taking off Indian Point. The neat thing, and you know, I tell you, I do defer to some of these state people on this. This guy, Richard Kaufman, who's the chair of Energy and Finance, really bright guy, you know, and one of the things that he said, which really blew me away, was that renewables are the only form of electricity generation that gets cheaper the more you use them. Right? So the economies of scale are just incredible. So what we're seeing now is, you know, the Municipal Solar Buyers Group, which you guys are part of, that's looking at stuff, the prices of solar have come down 99% since it first came out in the 60s. It's gone down 70% in the last 5 years alone. The price keeps coming down. The real cost of solar now is in the soft cost of the installation. The materials are like less than $1 a watt now, which is really incredible. It used to be $7 or $8 a watt just 10 years ago. So what we're seeing is that transition. So first, there's been a lot of gas, which you can have, you know, discussions and arguments about gas. So, but we're almost like half the state right now is being powered by gas, much better than coal in terms of emissions, much cheaper cost right now. But we're also seeing this transition. I mean, you know, the cheapest source of power in the state? Just, I mean, anybody guess?
Wind.
Second cheap, almost
Solar.
second cheaper, but no. Guess again. It was last century's renewable that the state invested in back 100 years ago, when we weren't even thinking about it. If you go upstate to that little, what's that? No.
Anybody
guess
in the
again.
back?
Hydro?
Hydro! There you go.
Said
There
water.
we are,
She
right?
said water.
We said
Oh,
that.
did you say water? I missed the
said
water.
water.
I'm sorry.
Water, I said hydro.
Oh, did you? You didn't speak up. I'm sorry you didn't say. You're right, though. It's hydro, right?
did.
Because basically what happens with renewables is you build the infrastructure, the water flows, you get free electric. The wind blows, you get free electric. The sun shines, you get free electric. And that's where we're headed, and that's the real piece. So that goal of 50% renewables that the state is systematically moving to, that's the real answer to the question. And you're right from the past, you know, and electric heat is the most inefficient piece of heat. Heat pumps, on the other hand, now are the most efficient So it's
Okay.
gone from electric resistance heaters to heat pumps. Even air source heat pumps are now some of the most efficient way of creating heat. And we're seeing in just the transitions of technologies, in particular with battery storage now, those prices are coming down so dramatically. It's like computers, right? So, I mean, you know, your iPhones, our smartphones were a multi-million-dollar supercomputer 5-7 years ago, you know? So it's a couple $100 now. And that's what's happening with batteries, and that's what happens with storage.
Thank you. If we were gonna buy a new car for the inspector's position, what would that normally, what, if we were to buy another sedan or to whatever, Mr. Warren?
35,000?
How much?
30, 35?
Okay, but we said, this is saying 17 a year.
No,
No,
17.
17, 5 years.
Net,
Oh,
5 years.
17 total.
Total, yeah.
Yeah, 4,000
Ah,
a year.
okay. Okay, so that sounds,
Pretty
It's a different
sweet.
number.
that's a different
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good, I think,
Great deal. I mean,
I
it
think
really is, so.
we probably need, well, I think that's a good deal, personally. I'm for charging stations. I just think we should talk about a
Parking
little bit
spaces
more
and
about
numbers.
where on some of them and how we want to do it.
Mhm.
That's all I have to say.
I know that we've talked about this a couple times, and Ron mentioned it earlier in his presentation. The $3 million is first come, first serve, correct?
Yep.
So we kind of want to, you know, be a little bit more aggressive rather than less. And then also for the charging stations, if I remember correctly, the due date is next Friday.
So for both the $5,000 grants
Okay.
and the charging stations, it's a week from Friday. It's the 31st, which is a tremendously crazy timeline.
However,
So,
you also said that the governor, and I didn't catch this because we have so many other things going on,
yeah,
but
no problem.
That's
the-
for residential.
The governor came out with an
with the
extended
7
program.
7, that was for residential only?
There's definitely a residential component. There's supposed to be other components in there for municipalities. So with this program, something like it may be after the April 1st budget,
But we don't know.
but you don't know.
Right, I know we don't
So
know because
that's
our
it.
budget's
So it's
a
just, yeah, that's the way the
crazy.
budget goes. So
Okay.
it's a bird in the hand versus.
Got it.
So,
So
one,
next
and
Friday
one of the
is
other
your-
advantage to to actually going in this direction is that it would also be another one of the 4 things that we need for the clean energy communities
Ah, yes,
grant,
thank
which
you.
could actually, if we
I
do it sooner rather than later, could mean that we could get up to
250.
$75,000
For what again?
for
Being a
think
greener
for
community.
just having completed
Oh,
the
just
actions.
just 70, we get 75,000?
Exactly.
We thought
This
it was
is
just
one
that
of
it
the 4
opened the
actions.
door for a new pool of grants, and
No.
that is also true, but there's also a $75,000
As long as
Congratulations.
we're getting money for something that we're not buying. We're buying things we have to buy, though.
No, right, we,
Yes.
it would
I mean, the
offset-
charging stations are not something we have to buy. My point is this: if I'm going to get $100, but I have to spend 120, it's not worth it. So I mean, we want to get $75,000 as a great incentive,
But we
but
would only be
because we're
spending
doing
$12,000 for the
Plus the charging
stations.
stations would be 60 for 3.
Charging stations would be $12,000 for.
Oh, it's
$12,000.
$12,000 to
For
you guys,
4,000
right?
For all 3?
Yes.
All three.
Oh, cool.
I think the money
Oh, I'm looking at the
mixed
wrong
us
one.
up.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're saying
So the car is-
17,000 for the car,
Correct, and that's
And
not,
we're
and that's
saying-
over.
and we're
5
saying
years.
12.
Lease.
I know, but it's still.
No, I know,
money.
but I'm just saying.
And
So that works.
And 17.
Right, and 12,000 for the 3 charging stations, correct?
All right, so my question is, will we be able to do the grant? I know you guys are awesome at grants.
Yes.
Victoria's all over it.
She's ready.
She's
already
she's
starting.
got her fingers hovering over the keyboard, waiting for you guys to
What was the
to make
first
a
thing
decision.
that we were doing, that we did, that would be part of this clean energy?
There were 2 that were
Adopting
past
the resolution.
actions that we've already
Oh,
taken.
okay.
And then one was the benchmarking resolution that the board passed a couple weeks ago. So remember, in our buildings, we're going to keep track of the
Yes,
utility
and this
costs
is the
and
last
post those
one?
publicly. And this would
Oh,
be the
that
4th of
works.
4.
All right, so.
You ready to
I
get
say
an electric
pursue.
car, Mr. Wiltshire?
No, the only thing I'm wondering is when they gonna make them look like something.
Like something.
I like them. You kidding me?
Really?
I've ridden in one of
Oh,
those
man,
Teslas,
you,
and it's sweet.
You got to get out there. You haven't been out in a while. You didn't like Leonardo DiCaprio's? You didn't like that Leonardo DiCaprio
Mr.
one,
Mr.
huh?
Wiltshire's like, I haven't been out in a while.
I apologize. Sir.
All right, so
Okay.
anyway, I feel like we got some good
He's a-
consensus going. Is that Fair to say, yeah, okay. All right, great, so thank you very much. We
My
appreciate
pleasure.
the
Thank you.
presentation,
Thank you,
and we'll
folks.
follow up with a call tomorrow. And we are now going to invite up Mr. David Stolman from FP Clark to assist us in our work session to continue our conversation about the zoning.
Do you have a pen that doesn't have a?
Just checking. And anybody who feels that they must leave because they can't keep their eyes open, feel free.
Okay, thank you.
One of those except you. Good try, that's funny.
He was talking about grant money.
All right.
The grant that we got from David, the year.
Is it very, very warm in here? Is it just my it's regular? I can't deal. Can't take it. Sorry.
Tomorrow. What'd you say?
Nothing.
Yeah, I didn't want to bother you, but.
No, no, just hitting you. Well, tomorrow. Filling up my sleeves for the work session. Hi, David. How are you? I don't. All right, so.
Maybe before then.
So I think we've shared with you some of our concerns. You've been with us to hear some of them. We had a few more tonight that you were not privy to in our public hearing portion. Ms. Sharrett talked to us about a visual barrier for adjacent properties for general business development to clarify some of the language about structural soil that's supposed to be used around trees to clarify something about not just being used for general landscaping, but just around impervious surfaces where they would normally be impervious to instead use permeable pavement and structural soil in those areas, and just make it clear that it's not for all landscaping. So if there was natural, grass or other surfaces that are not impermeable, that's not, at that point, you don't want permeable pavement to replace that. And she also talked about putting in something for to make sure that when tree removal is being done for solar panel or solar energy access, that it be given careful consideration before trees are removed just to put in solar panels, because sometimes it seems like you're actually making the problem worse by getting rid of a shade tree that may improve your energy or reduce your energy needs for a particular building structure versus putting solar. I know that I've gone through that same balancing act for my own home, so
So did I.
yeah.
And I kept the tree.
And I kept the tree. So in any case, that was one thing. And then we heard from Mr. Fiorito, who talked about the nature of Crotonville and the section where a particular property that he has purchased is, and he believes that we should be maintaining it more as warehouses because that's what it is now. Nobody's complaining about it. It seems like there's no place for any of these businesses to, right now, for people to park park trucks and things like for landscaping businesses, plumbing businesses, and other related types of businesses. And he wants to make sure that we continue to keep these areas available, especially in an area that's been serving that purpose for many years, is a busy street, doesn't have any sidewalks, doesn't have any parking, and believes that there's value to having those commercial properties on the tax rolls versus having residential or other things that maybe offset the benefits of commercial. I hope I represented that well.
Yeah, you did.
All
I
right.
was very impressed by that. I was like, that was good.
Okay,
And
so
then-
those are just some
Good listening
additions. I
skills.
just wanted to bring you up to speed because I know that we've heard a lot. We had also gotten some positive feedback again from some residents who were happy to have additional residential there. They thought that it was more conducive to the neighborhood. We've heard from our Mary Knoll fathers and sisters for the two different properties that they have with their concerns about some of the zoning changes that were proposed, that they're concerned that their property values are going to be reduced, that there are there's concern that we're moving to less affordable housing rather than more, and they believe that it should not necessarily be consistent with Newcastle's zoning, even though I believe that their parcels actually cross over to the Newcastle property. So they're kind of straddling two different sets of zoning regulations on both the father's property as well as the sister's property. We also heard from a business owner on North State Road who believes that some of the additional environmental improvements that we've made to the code, I shared those with you.
No, I know, but that's a different area.
No, but he's saying the environmental improvements that we're making to the code in general to, that we've addressed.
Which particular environmental codes
The
that we are
tree,
now?
a lot of the visual barriers, some of the things that Ms. Sherrod has brought up and that actually has helped us to embellish is going to be more burdensome for businesses and make it harder and less attractive for these businesses to want to build in Ossining. And we have heard from, I'm leaving something out that's significant. I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, so those are some of the many different pieces of input that we've, I think, received during our public hearing, and also initially we heard from one business that had multi-family residence that was concerned that was going to be changed, and we've made some significant changes along the way as we were going to try to still maintain the ideas behind the comprehensive plan, but also taking into account some of the changes that have taken place in the planning community, I'll say, and what the thinking is now in suburbia and what direction we're moving. I've kind of noted, I think, along the way that, we're kind of approaching how do we get millennials to come here to our communities now? What kind of what's the lifestyle now? How is it different? How has it changed from maybe the one that when many of us moved here for 30 to 50 years ago, or those of us who grew up here and then decided to remain here, how we have lived, really relying on our cars to get us every place, getting in our cars. I think of that movie LA Story. Does everybody remember that movie where get in the car and you drive one?
Please.
It's not obscure. And you drive and you drive from like literally this house, you get in your car and you go drive to that house. I think about like the suburbs a lot in that way, that we get in our cars and we get out of our cars, and never the twain shall meet, but a lot of people, there's a big article in the Times this weekend of folks moving up from Brooklyn to Ossining and why they like this community. And one of the things that people are looking for is more walkability, more accessibility, public transportation. So we talked a lot about that. And,
I don't think that's, I think the people who are moving here from Brooklyn are moving here, the first thing they say is diversity. And so that what we look like mirrors more what they come from, at least somewhat, than the rest of, or a large portion. And the second thing is some affordability. And yes, those who might move into the deeper urban center of the Main Street area, but the people who are moving into the houses are not moving here for walkability. I'm not saying that we shouldn't I'm just saying, like, let's be clear. They're not moving here.
I disagree with you because I actually moved up here from the city myself, and I know that that was one of the hardest things, the biggest adjustments that I personally had to make was having to get in and out of my car every time with
But
the
they're
baby.
not
and-
moving here for.
But the point is
So that's a
that
lot of people
people have different lifestyles, and again, if you kind of take a look at the direction that planning is going and what's happening in other suburbs around us and in comprehensive plans and master planning, they are moving more in the direction of complete streets, of walkability, bikeability, of accessibility to public transportation, what's TOD stand for, somebody? Transit-oriented development. Thank you.
Can I jump in?
Yes. Jump on in.
What I think you're talking about is more of a comprehensive planning effort regarding these things you're talking about than what I think we're trying to do.
I realize that. I understand, but I was just trying to frame out some of the things that that we've been talking about
Right,
along the
but-
way and how we kind of shifted our focus a little bit in Crotonville. From originally where we were just going to be all residential to kind of taking a look at multi-use zoning where we could have a business and a residence and actually make it more conducive to people living and working and playing in and accessing services all in one place. And that's what I was talking about for Crotonville specifically. That's how our conversation has kind of gone, and we've talked about that particular area. And I know that there's an opinion that, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There might be two.
Okay.
There might be two. And I just have to say, because
Ironically,
the only people, well, I always said from the beginning that I didn't want to replace businesses with residential. I've always said that. I've always consistently said that. So that's not so ironic. The second thing is we do have a individual who has consistently, I've been informed that we should, you know, we talk about listening to the people who show up. That's been a theme going on, right, out here in the world of Ossining. So we have somebody who's consistently showed up. We have 3 emails, maybe. So when we say we have some, we have like 2 or 3 emails that I remember. And if you have more, I apologize, but I've only seen 2 or 3 emails where we said, yeah, we like residential. Nobody showed up. And we have 2 individuals who've come. This gentleman has come much more than the other. The other came 2 times. And, you know, at this point, we're twisting ourselves in some knots. And I get what you're trying to say, but this poor gentleman is saying what this NC is not going to do what I need, and this piece of property doesn't work for any of that. And, you know, you get to a place where we were trying to look at the comprehensive plan and things that were suggested and see if we could put in code that would kind of go along with it and whether it worked or not. And I'm still open because I'm starting to feel like we are going around and around and around. And if we're not making the people happy who are in the area, then I don't know why we're doing it.
Sure, and I hear exactly what you're saying, and I'm very empathetic. I'm like somebody who likes to find a solution to all of these things, but I also think that the whole point of looking at a comprehensive plan is what you're trying to do is look at what your space is, what your community can support, what is a right size for different areas of your community, what fits and what works. And while you want to be as you know sympathetic to businesses and to residences and to people who have special interests, whatever they be, whether they be environmental interests and they want to protect their own properties and the land around their property, or noise issues, or you know, you want to make sure that you can support the school district because you want to make sure that there's the right balance between commercial and residential, and you want to make sure that you have affordable housing. These are all the things that we have to balance, and we do need to take into consideration all of these points of view, but we can't just make decisions because somebody always shows up. And I love Mr. Fiorito, and I want to make sure that we can try to find a way to make this work. But if you look at how many individuals' responses we've gotten, just because somebody doesn't keep showing up because they're not directly impacted, doesn't mean that they don't have an opinion. It just means that they don't think that they're threatened.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Yes.
We don't have anybody showing up from Crotonville. Anybody but this gentleman. We do not have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 emails. How long have we been doing this now? How long has
For a year, about a year.
We have not had anybody show up except for this one gentleman. Nobody in the community of Crotonville is coming out and saying, yes, we want full scale.
That's true.
So what I'm trying to figure out is whose direction. We're trying to make Crotonville into something that's going to go in the future as a like,
I don't know that that's what it is. I don't know, you know.
Well,
you
okay,
tell me.
the recommendation, the reason we're looking at it isn't because people asked. The reason we're looking at it is because last time they did the whole comprehensive plan and the whole okay, well, you're asking me why,
No, I
you know,
said the
we're looking at
comprehensive
this.
plan says that this is a suggestion, and we were looking to see if we should put codes in that would promote that
Right.
suggestion. But now we're sitting here, and nobody from Crotonville has showed up, except for this fine gentleman, one other
Well, there were a
gentleman.
bunch of people that showed up the first couple of meetings, all against it, the ones that showed.
Right. And I'm just saying we don't have,
And we have a few letters
And
of
we made some
support.
changes since
Now we're-
they're, and
now
since
we're
then,
down
we actually
to
haven't heard from
The,
them.
the current proposal
Yeah.
is to change the zoning of 3 parcels.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
I know, but so what we keep hitting the tension of is NC or GB1, and what is the ability, for instance, in his parcel to do, right? So that's, now I understand that generally we wouldn't normally change zoning for one person's, thing, but we're being asked to change zoning another way. So I think what we're trying to figure out is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it the right thing to do for these, you know, I don't know.
So I think we should maybe talk in terms of specifics. Would that be helpful or no?
Sure.
Yes. Sure.
So, I had a conversation with Mr. Fiorito, others, I guess you have, Dana, as well. Can I ask him a question? Is that during the work session?
Go ahead. I don't have any problem with
What
it.
is it that you, very specifically, what is it that you would like to do with that property?
3 garages
Yeah.
with
Let him
bays.
talk. Let him talk. Come on back on up to the microphone. Because, yeah, we did
I
talk
wanna know how
about this
they
in the
fit in
public
this
hearing.
little spot.
Not 3 separate garages, one building with several
Bays.
bays in it. So I feel I could rent it to all these people that are coming, the landscapers, the plumbers, the electricians, who need a place to park, that legally can't park in their backyard, which they're doing now, whose neighbors are on their case, sometimes the town's on their case and booting them out, and they have no place to go. Here's a perfect spot for them. Put a nice looking little, you know, call it what you want, garage, warehouse, but something that looks nice and landscaped correctly, and give them a place to go. And,
So
you
would
know,
it-
make it big enough so they could put their stuff inside, because you don't want material yards, I understand that. And, but it's surrounded with 3 warehouses, and it's never gonna change. The truth of the matter is, it's never gonna change. The guy next door doesn't even have a CO on his last warehouse yet. You changed it to NC. He has a brand new one. It's not even CO'd yet.
Right.
And,
So in
and
the GB1 zone, there's currently a permitted use, and this is proposed to stay. And it's warehouse and storage facilities and related business offices, provided there is no outdoor storage of any kind. So it seems to me that that would fit what Mr. Fiorito is liking to do with this property.
And you're
So-
saying that's still part of NC,
No,
Oh,
that's
That's
GB,
GB.
GB1.
right?
Which,
So if the property stays zone GB1, Mr. Fiorito would be able to do what he would like to do with this property. If it gets zoned to NC, that wouldn't be permitted anymore, unless we would
This little
add that to the NC district, but it doesn't seem to be
Yes.
fitting with the NC district that well.
So if this stayed GB1, then,
Right.
because then this would allow some of that usage.
Right, and
That would be really spot zoning.
Well,
I
what
don't
is
think
all the
that's-
usage that it's, what's the difference, okay, what's the difference between NC and GB1? Because we've gone back and
it's
forth.
adjacent to a GB1 zone. I mean, it's
Currently.
currently zoned GB1, and if you look at your map, it would be an extension of an existing GB1 zone.
Can you remind us a little, I know it's maybe not easy, the difference between globally NC and GB1? Is there a global way we could talk about
NC
it?
is more, it's sort of a less intensive zone than GB1.
Could he do that in
GB1's
NC?
intensive in how one? No.
He wouldn't
But-
be able,
but-
he
Go ahead,
could
sorry.
have a business office and some, parking of vehicles, but this sounds like it's gonna be entirely parking of
Mr.
sort of
Stallman,
construction vehicles.
can I just, generally, let's just stick to some generalities.
Okay.
Generally, what do you mean by GB1 is less intense or more intense?
Well, the uses that are permitted in the GB1 zone, as we have been thinking about changing it, are warehouse and storage facilities and related business offices, provided there is no outdoor storage of any kind, public utility structures which only serve the local area, buildings and uses owned and operated by the town. So currently it's very limited.
GB1 is very limited?
It would be very limited, yes. It's really been sort of designed for the area down below. where
Right.
You have storage facilities
Right,
and truck parking.
right.
So it's really not designed for the area above, up on top. But,
And NC was the one that kind of gave it all the different things that we could do,
all the,
right?
all the new things. So
all the-
maybe the larger parcel on the map there remains NC, and this parcel that Mr. Friarito owns,
Is the next?
remains GB1,
I
and it's
see.
adjacent to an existing GB1 zone, so
I got
it's
it.
not spot zoning in any sense.
Yes.
Is it
right,
really
'cause-
adjacent or is it across the river?
Adjacent to.
It's falling onto his property.
Across the river.
I don't know. I can't-
Literally.
What river?
What I'm trying to say is,
This is,
yeah,
this is the,
right, this
steep
is
slope.
adjacent to this GB1, so it would just be an extension of that, even though it's up high, this is down low.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
this is NC GB1, and this is 7.5, and hopefully that solves the whole thing.
this
This is
NC for the,
existing NC, it stays.
it's
So the
existing
NC
NC.
basically extends to here.
Yes.
So this is
It extends
existing
from- all the way from down
NC,
here, all the way up here.
and we would just,
to that.
and we would just extend that part here, I
Right,
see.
and there's been
And
no
then we would
objection
change
to
this,
that.
okay,
And I'd like to keep the redefinition of the NC,
right.
I
because,
think that solves everything.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So leave that area GB.
GB1.
GB1.
Yeah, obviously, Mr. Stillman is intimately familiar with all of this and has done a phenomenal job going through all of these changes. Technically, it's the building inspector who interprets the code and determines if a use is permitted. So while Mr. Stillman can certainly weigh in and provide his input and expert interpretation about what would be permitted as a use, when the property owner, if and when the property owner ultimately comes in under any zone to try to do a use, it's going to be the building inspector who's going to decide whether that use is permitted. So if you may want to consider getting the building inspector's
In here,
initial,
to talk
just,
about
or
these
just,
different
you know, have the
Right.
property owner just submit, if this is something that you want to, that you're contemplating being permitted going forward, that can't be guaranteed until the building inspector has had a chance to review a proposal and weigh in, because under state law, he is the one who does so and is the only one authorized to do so. So that's
So
just
before
something
we
you
make
may
a
want to consider.
Final decision on that? We'll
Okay,
get an
so he
opinion
has,
from
he should bring it,
Tom.
be brought into,
I mean, I don't even know if bringing him in is necessary. He could just
need to-
review
we
it and
just need to have him
provide
review the
comments.
plan.
However you want to handle it.
I don't mean just that plan, I mean, he should be reviewing NC, right?
No, because
No.
there's nothing proposed there now. You have to.
Asking for an interpretation.
We're talking about an interpretation of a particular
Use of
thing.
this.
Right.
Got it.
What?
No, I got it, I'm sorry, I got it. Okay. Okay.
Are we good?
I like that better, but that's me liking it better, but.
You're good?
Good.
Good.
I will be compromising on that, even though, as I
Well-
say, I love you. But it's a compromise, I just want to let you know that.
Well, well, in respect to something you said earlier, which I'm extremely familiar with, because one of my sons and my daughter-in-law are both attorneys. She's from Manhattan, and of course he's from up here. And same thing, she never had a car, which now with the kids she has, it has to, but they live in Terrytown now, but the reason they moved there is because they could walk to the train station. Her parents take the subway to Grand Central, to Terrytown,
Exactly.
and walk to their house. However, Crotonville has no buses, has no trolley,
My
has no
point to that is
sidewalks.
Yeah.
Not a
Where you
conducive
move
place
depends
that
upon where
people
you
that want to walk to a train. So I understand, and this is why, like, the housing downtown Austin, people coming up because they can walk to the train, take the ferry across the
Walk
Haverstraw,
and
they
get
can
your
do.
breakfast. You don't have to drive everywhere.
But-
The
but-
whole point is to have
No,
access
but in that
to
particular
services.
area, there is no sidewalks. It's a busy road. There's no sidewalks on either side. There's not
Wanted to
even
put one-
parking.
If you wanted to put in a sidewalk, we.
Okay, I'm really,
Wait, I'd like to say something.
So I do relate with what you're saying.
I think that there's a lot of times that the reality of zoning and planning for the future and the reality of what actually happens, you have, you know, for example, there are parts of the village of Ossining that were rezoned to two single and two-family homes. Most of the buildings in those areas are multifamily homes and have been there for many, many, many years. So while the intent of the change was made to reduce density, to alleviate burden on infrastructure, alleviate burden on the school district, I'm presuming some of the stuff. The reality is, once you have a 17-unit building in a two-family zone, no one is going to ever buy a 17-unit rental building and say, I know, let me tear it down and only get 2 rents out of it. So the reality is that, you know, change evolves over time, and I think the changes that are being put in place now with this compromise provide the best ability to accommodate residents now, but start leaving the door open for a gradual change, because I do have to disagree a little bit on the ability to put retail in a place that isn't that dense. I think it would be hard to sustain it over time.
There used to be.
But there used to be thriving Main Street that was really well developed too. So some of the things that changed that don't have to do with, they have to do with big box stores, they have to do with other resources that made those small mom and pop stores unsustainable. And as much as there's a trend to go back to that, if you look at our Main Street, if you look at what it's taken us to rehabilitate North State Road, it does take a lot of time to do that.
It
So,
does. It takes time and it takes vision.
but I understand that, but what I'm saying is that you have to also deal with what you have to do now and be practical too. So this, to me, provides the best of both worlds in opening up to a vision for the future, but also maintaining what's needed now.
And I'm willing to compromise.
You don't really have a choice.
I don't, but I'm still willing to do so anyway.
Okay,
So
well, that's
I think that it makes a difference if you have everybody on board, and I appreciate that we do. So let's continue on, okay?
Thank you.
that is a good compromise. But you're gonna go speak, I mean, so that we're doing all these compromises, you're gonna
Speak
go
to
speak
John.
to.
Yeah, I would just based upon what the town board's discussion was with that understanding, I just wanted to make sure you knew that that couldn't be set in stone based upon this
So you
discussion.
should do that.
And then,
So, Mr. Fiorito, you can go home now and relax a little bit.
When I go home every
I'm gonna
night, I
miss 'em.
relax. Lights out.
all
Thank
right,
you.
have a good night.
Thank
And now we're gonna talk a little bit about the Marino issue.
So,
Go ahead.
can I talk? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
All
I was
right,
gonna just say
so
what you were
I
saying.
got a copy of the easement and a map.
I'm gonna recuse myself.
Okay.
The easement.
Right, so there is a conservation easement on this property already, which I have taken the time while we're sitting here to draw. That most of the property, here's the, I don't know how good you are at reading maps.
I'm not.
Okay, so,
Do you wanna
the
take a
part
picture
that I
of it?
just
Let's-
drew,
let's- Can we do a picture of it?
No, it's that she drew on
on
it.
this
I drew on that one.
Tom, can you
So
see it?
It's this
I don't know.
area?
Can you zoom in? I don't know where the camera is or where I should hold this, so. There's like
There's-
5
Okay.
cameras in this room.
It's something in
So
this
anyway.
area.
The area that I outlined
something
with
in
pen,
this
right
area.
there, right, is the conservation easement. I did not draw the entire one all the way into the Newcastle,
Good.
because that's not the area we're discussing.
Right.
The part that isn't,
Some part of
here's,
this.
So this whole area here is the conservation easement. So you could, here, show
Okay.
him for a second.
Oh, okay. Oh, up there.
Right.
So anyway, and the other area that isn't covered by conservation easement is mainly the buildings. So even if they were to sell the property and it was owned half acre or anything, there's no building allowed according to this document on that property. So
that, you just lost
the
me.
whole shaded area has been
Cannot build
sold.
on
The right to
Got it.
build on it has been sold. So they own the property, but the right to build on that property has been sold to the Westchester Land Trust.
Do we actually have that document?
Yes.
No, not the map, the actual.
Yes, I have it right here.
Okay, so I mean, because, okay,
Oh, okay, I
I would
got
just
it
like
from
to
the
take a
Westchester
look
County
at
Land
it,
Trust.
just because sometimes there are exceptions and conditions and something. Okay, well,
Okay.
we'll just take a look at it.
So this area
Okay.
that we were showing, that part that's been sold.
That cannot be
Okay, so we're
cannot be
still
developed.
talking about all of this.
No.
We're not? What do you mean we're not? Give her her thing back, cause I'm. This? All of that.
That's the fathers.
Right.
So we're talking about the fathers.
Right.
Right, so the sisters is already
Oh,
taken care.
So
The
you're
sisters
saying
is-
the piece of land from this, let me just see if I understand, cause it's late and it's been a long.
This is from
a
this
long-
side of the
The-
Ryder
the-
Road, and the father's
the-
on that side.
Find the road, find the road.
Right, so this is the sisters.
Right, okay, so what we're saying is that the sister's land that is
Non-developed.
potentially impacted by any zoning change that we were going to make in Ossining, because the rest of them are of the sisters is in Newcastle, that piece of land is already sold to the Westchester Land Trust.
Correct.
The right,
And that is what our council would like to take a look at to see if there's any particular exception.
It's not actually sold to the Westchester Land Trust. I don't
It is a.
Right to develop.
It's a,
Not even.
let's say what the right verbiage is.
Conservation easement is basically an instrument which encumbers that property, and I haven't read through the whole thing, but presumably does not allow any development on that property.
Okay, so can we have somebody take a look at that? And, thank you. And then the question specific still to that is, if that be true, is there a need to rezone, or do we just leave it alone?
Right, well,
Okay,
Well-
so that, okay.
well, so that's, again, this is
I
this
underst-
part.
I know-
So
I
we're
know.
still talking about the rest.
Well, no, I'm just, right now, I'm just talking about that.
Okay.
Because they kind of, I mean, while they talk about it together, they also talk about it separately, so if we can distinguish also. So the question is, if that
new one.
easement speaks the way it seems like it might, with no ability do we need to
it allays off
carve
here.
that out to say we don't have to rezone that, or do we rezone it and explain that it doesn't bother them, and do we have to, now we're just
Okay.
dealing with this?
All right, to continue,
To continue,
in my view,
in your view.
the fathers said they were going to come talk to us about what their thoughts were, but part of the other part is the main building complex.
Where is
Which-
the main building on this, do we know?
Yes. Right, well, you see the circle and the other road. So the main building
There's a circle.
should
Let's see,
be,
here's Brookside Lane, here's a circle,
Uh-huh.
so this is where the main father's complex would be.
behind, right here.
Somewhere here. Is
And
it
then I believe the,
There's some
is
other
the farm in
other buildings
Ossining,
over there.
David?
Sorry?
Is the farm portion in Ossining?
I don't believe, some of it, maybe,
I
but
think
not
part
most
of it is.
Okay, so some of it, is that zoned for farm, or
No.
it could just all,
R40.
okay.
Well, that's, no, because most of it, I think, is in Newcastle, now that I look at it, because most of it is over the line. That's where I believe most of the
Sentence tells it.
So there's still all of it.
open
Okay, yes, so the farm's over there, you're right.
is over there, and most of the structures are on the,
Right, so you have the father's nursing home probably here, and the big seminary here, with the field here. And that's all kind of landscaped
Okay,
and parking
show
in
you.
here. So weren't the fathers gonna tell us what their thoughts were on the property?
I don't know.
I'm just asking, because now I realize that half of it's already protected, which makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
Well, it's only in protected in so far as, I mean, right, we don't, so let's make up a future of 50 years from, like, let's make a future of 1,000 years from now. And
The world is ashes.
And no. No, and they've changed, and they've sold it, then you
So
can.
the question is, if it's sold, what is, it, somebody could tear down the building.
Right, that's my point.
Right?
And that's why I said
Or-
1,000 years from
right,
now,
somebody
because I
could
don't
tear down the
wanna
building, or
know that future.
they
I
may
don't wanna-
never tear down the building, and,
But they could,
yeah, they could.
under this.
Right, but if they
could.
didn't tear down the building and they were able to use it for other uses, what is allowed right now?
Nothing.
Right now, besides residential development, there are agricultural operations, places of worship, including parish houses, schools, educational institutions, philanthropic institutions, religious institutions, hospitals, nursing and rest homes, or sanitaria for general medical care and treatment of the mentally ill, but excluding facilities for the permanent confinement of the mentally ill, drug addicts, and chronic alcoholics, or the treatment of drug addicts and chronic alcoholics.
We would not, by
Exclude.
state law, we cannot exclude that, but okay.
We have other things as well.
That's in our code?
Mm-hmm.
Can you?
See if that's legal. Disabilities Act?
God almighty. There's a law, by the way, just saying. Go ahead.
So we also have annual membership clubs catering exclusively to members and their guests or other recreational facilities, open to the public, and accessory playgrounds, swimming pools, tennis courts, and recreation buildings. Cemeteries and municipally owned and operated firehouses.
So basically, there are a lot of institutional uses that are allowable.
Mhm.
That conceivably would be a sort of a great fit.
Yeah,
for
I don't have a problem with
already
any of
built
those.
Building, right? So that is still allowable. It doesn't, none of that is precluded by the change that we have, proposed.
Correct.
Okay. Yes?
It is the Batavan law.
So what we're saying is that what's allowed now would continue to be allowed even if it was rezoned R2A? Assuming you're using the same structure and just repurposing it? I mean, I would want to look at how the pre-existing non-conforming provisions work with respect to change of uses. Because, I mean, technically, that wouldn't be the zoning anymore. It would be R2A. Would R2A include all of those uses? Okay, that's where I was lost, sorry.
I'm glad you asked it, because.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing a
But that also means they can knock it down and build a country club.
That's true.
They could apply for that, yes.
Yeah, but
And just to sort of put this in context, we're trying to implement recommendations from the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan essentially said, take the density of that property and cut it in half. So, one way of looking at this is either you like that idea, but if you don't like that idea, there is no other recommendation in the comprehensive plan for this property.
Okay.
So it would be more of a comprehensive planning effort to say, well, what should we use those buildings for? What would the adaptive reuse be for? We'd be planning instead of zoning.
Okay.
Okay. So,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, okay.
that's good.
So, if we were to change the zoning, it really wouldn't affect the sisters' ability to do anything other than knock down their building and do something else with it, because the other areas are already protected. Or after you read that, you'll
not
understand
the
that better.
sisters, it's the brothers, right?
Well, the sisters, I'm going back a step. The sisters, so if we change the whole thing, the sisters aren't really that affected. unless they actually want to tear down their building, because that's the only little tiny piece that's still not in the conservation agreement.
Can you just
That other thing that you did.
so that you know, maybe for my own edification, so we're all on the same page. The change that would be affected by some future use from the rezoning would be the minimum lot size of a residential parcel if it were subdivided from 1 acre to 2.
Right, and as a matter of fact, in this new R2A district, in terms of permitted uses, it says any permitted use or accessory use listed in the R40 residence district, which is the current zoning.
Okay.
And the zoning law, as you know, refers back and forth between zones a lot.
Sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, their concern is that it's the residential part. Their concern is that by rezoning this to cutting by half or increasing by however way you look at it, it's not the school or the agriculture or the educational use or the hospital or the mental health. Those aren't affected either way, because they're going to be big, whatever. It's the residential part. That's what's the issue.
So, right, but we're trying to figure out realistically what is going to really.
What scenario would somebody break it up into that?
But in the real scenario of the world of developing, where we like to make lots of houses, we knock down everything. I don't know what we do with the seminary. I mean, at the big house, but
I'm just- right.
but and then you understand, and
Yeah,
then we. So, I mean, if we have to discuss, and then here's the flip side, and this is the part where I think Mr. Stallman is trying to say, like, don't plan, which is,
Well, it's not exactly.
Either we like it or we don't.
no, I know, I'm kidding. I mean,
Planning is my life.
is if we wanted to allow for what I think the brothers and sisters do have in their heart with respect to keeping things affordable, so that maybe an apartment building would be something
think-
that we would.
Right, an apartment building.
But that's,
I actually go there.
I don't think they're not
get
asking
it.
for that.
No,
They
they're
just-
not.
They're
but
not. They just don't want us to touch this.
And we're-
They would rather us just leave it well enough alone. Leave it
I
on 40. They're not asking us
You know,
for more than that.
It would
I
be,
get it.
it would be ironic, I think, in a way, if we started out with cutting the density in half.
No, I
and
get
ended
it.
up Allowing apartment buildings on the
No,
top.
I get it. Well, I mean, we're talking about 500 years from now when you still have that building and maybe they sold it, so you use the building for the apartment, because we have, the fathers live in there now.
But that
And
could-
if that
but
were
there's
to
a
come
certain-
down the pike, they could always approach the board for, for special use.
Conditional.
Or conditional
For a
use.
zoning text amendment or a
Right.
zoning map change.
They could, if
I
that
know.
were to be
So-
the case down the line.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, we have to decide.
Are we going to, so
What are we
let's
doing?
go back to the beginning of this moratorium that we instituted, Ms. Jeffrey.
Miss Jeffrey is
Because
feeling-
I
is
wanted
under-
to talk to you specifically about it, because this was actually an area of great concern to you.
It is.
So where do you personally stand on it? I want to know. Do you want to stay at 2A, or would you like to listen to the people and leave it well enough alone?
So I thought that what we were coming to hear were some thoughts and some ideas.
Well,
I haven't heard any thoughts or ideas. What I've heard is these are the things that we can do.
that's where we left it last time.
And-
And then when we start thinking about ideas, we talk about conceivably adaptive reuse of the buildings, but when we do that, we're not.
Planning.
Right.
We're not
doing-
zoning.
We're doing comprehensive planning, which,
Right.
you know,
So I think-
midstream here, which we
right.
said we weren't going to do.
And so we had a conversation
Okay.
outside of this context, just to talk a little bit about, what framework we were going to be discussing these plans. And we talked about some of the suggestions that came up last week, and we said, well, are we gonna go exactly what David just said? Are we gonna go from making it, less dense?
Or more
to
dense.
make it
Right.
more dense?
Right, no.
Well, if we're gonna go in that direction,
No.
how about we don't,
And
and
we
just
leave it.
leave it where it is? And
Right.
if in fact, somebody comes to the board with a proposal for adaptive reuse that feels like it fits in with a lot of the other types of things that we believe are good fits for the town, then we consider it at that time.
I think what we can do is really say to the brothers and the sisters is that, well, what we just would like is if we're talking about, to your point, moving a little bit more away from the suburban thing, even though we are the suburbs and we're into our constituency in terms of what they're asking for, then it is only okay that we can ask back. Now, we can't.
I think if we're concerned enough about
Christie.
what the potential is that could happen, then we should consider
Zoning it.
changing the zoning. If we believe that, which I actually believe, that it's much more likely that some of those structures are going to be maintained, and it's much more likely that they're gonna be able to sell that for an institutional use than anything else. What kind, I don't know. It could end up being senior housing, it could be this, that, the other thing. But if we believe that somebody's actually gonna just tear it down and start from scratch, then, you know, we should absolutely, you know, be concerned about this.
See, now my thought was that they would sell off little edges of the property, say over here, and have, you know, a neighborhood instead of where the soccer field is, next to their property, as, you know, if they needed money, that they would sell that off.
Just
Because
add a
I
little-
believe from what I got from their conversation.
This is where the Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway part is?
Yeah, it is actually.
Just add a little bit of information. If they were to want to develop part of the property or the whole thing, forgetting about the conservation easement for a moment.
Got it.
The planning board not only has the ability to allow conservation or cluster development, it also has the authority to mandate conservation subdivisions or cluster development. And there was a gentleman at the last meeting who was trying to create a distinction between conservation subdivisions and cluster development, and in one he had 30% open space, and another he had 60. I don't know of any hard and fast rules like that. There are all kinds of cluster developments. Some are more compact, some are more spread out. But the planning board has the authority to allow them, approve them, and mandate them under certain circumstances
In any neighborhood,
in any development.
in any undeveloped area.
You wouldn't do it in a two-lot subdivision, but if there were a sizable, you know,
Sizable acreage.
enough units to warrant it, the planning board could allow it, could approve it, and could mandate it.
Chrissy, did you have something you wanted to tell us?
I would proceed cautiously with what you're gonna ask of someone or a property owner before you're going to make a decision
Oh,
about
no,
the
no,
property.
I didn't mean,
after?
I mean after.
Okay, that's
No,
all I wanna be
I know
clear.
the words,
Okay, that's all I wanted to caution.
let me be clear. I would never ask anybody anything before we made a decision. It would be an ask after. Let me be further clear. Asking is not demanding, mandating, or no. I'm saying you can ask anything after.
I agree
You
with you.
don't
Okay.
have anything. Nobody has to say yes in life.
No, the key word is after.
Yeah,
That's just what I wanted to make
Oh,
sure
yeah,
we
yeah.
were clear about.
Whatever we decide to do, we're gonna decide to do. My point was, if we decide that we will keep it as is, if we are thinking that to your point, that the chances are not high that somebody would come and, that they're gonna sell it, that it's gonna be raised, that they're gonna take out that beautiful building, and that the chances are not high, and so we decide, you know what, the chances are higher that the uses are gonna be kept, and so why just not leave it? We vote on that if we were to do that, and then we could say, hi, we heard you, we've determined, we ask, we move on. If, you know,
I think
that's what I hope
actually-
that's
I mean,
clear.
what I actually think would be our best bet would be to leave it. and then to actually sit down and talk to them about what would be some potential uses and some potential ways for them to generate some revenue,
And I would like to do
in
that
a-
with
in
a
a way
couple
that
of
would
other
be
property use.
positive for the-
There
for
are a
the
few other
community.
property owners
So.
who I think we should have that conversation with too, to
Right.
help them.
Right.
To have them feel like we are part of helping them and part of the conversation, so that they can feel heard and helped. We might be able to get what we think is more of the vision, you know, as a collaborative thing. You know.
And I think we can do that without changing the zoning. So I think, you know, again, I think maybe the best thing to do is to leave it as is and see if we can work with them on, moving forward in a direction that would be positive for the community. For you.
Still looking at the map.
Mr. Wiltshire.
Excuse me. I'm just listening, but to me, this should not even be our business, I don't think. That's their property. How are we gonna just dictate what they have to do? I just don't like it. I don't care if it is a comprehensive plan. I don't care who planned it. Now,
In theory,
you gonna
townspeople.
in nothing. If you come to my house and tell me I got to build something or I can't build something on the rest of my property, no, that's not gonna go
You
very
can't have
well.
5 families in your house.
That's
You don't know
I mean,
that.
that's all the time. That's part of what our job is, though.
But that, I
really-
just
that's part of
don't,
what our
I
job
don't,
is.
I just don't like it.
Well, we
Okay,
have,
all
we
right.
have
Go ahead.
the town supervisor who stated that she feels a certain way. I think I tend to lean towards where she is, and we definitely know where Mr. Wiltshire stands. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's,
I'm looking at the piece of property that we're talking about because most of the open space is actually in Newcastle, is already zoned 2A.
no, I mean, that's not true. There's a chunk of property that chunk.
But
is-
from what I know of Maryknoll property, and have been there quite a
that's
bit,
it, right.
the main buildings here, nobody in their right mind would touch that, and they're
Right.
all right, let's just not go there. That would be silly. I doubt they're knocking down the post office. The father's nursing home.
So where?
While it's not the prettiest building in the world, it's a very useful building, so I wouldn't see them. There's tennis court, and there's parking, so it's only really the soccer field, which is damp
bottom.
anyway. Right, the soccer field, kind of right across from Brookside School, and that's really not a big enough piece to upset that many fathers. I mean, but once I found out that there's already a conservation over here on this side, and that most of these antique buildings that really don't feel are at risk of being knocked down and made into multiple unit housing.
What's along this side that says
Where?
Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway? That area.
That's behind it. Now that's between where the water tower is on Minkle and Redway. That's the land between that and at the bottom of the slope.
Ah, that's
It's
like-
wet and it's a
like
stream.
woods over
Yeah, it's a trailway. It's a wooded path.
It's a path.
And it's
Part
a
of the
park.
Connection to T-Town.
He said it's owned by the state?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay, then-
park.
I got it.
The trailway is a park.
Ah, okay.
So that's undevelopable also.
Got it. Okay, so it's sandwiched between two undevelopable. Okay. Two pieces that are not able to be developed, we think, and then.
Right.
And then major portions that have
Historical buildings.
historical
I mean, really
buildings.
relevant
Right.
buildings.
Well, right, okay.
So if that's the only piece, and I don't think the father's nursing home is I haven't looked very carefully. That's not a very relevant building to me, but it's really well used and it's serving a purpose. I don't see somebody coming in like building a bunch of houses right there.
Okay.
So.
I think we've.
We could probably, now that I know that much of it's conserved between the park and the other side, I'm okay leaving it where it is.
Okay.
All right, back to square one.
No, but I
Hope you
think
enjoyed
it's
our little
been-
ride.
But then that suggestion can be taken out of the comprehensive plan?
That it's been evaluated?
Then we can take,
Have some future board going back.
yes,
Yeah.
that was the point. So I think we should remove that from the comprehensive plan.
It has been delved into, looked at, and
Make some adjustment.
Yeah.
Amendment, and we can also amend the part about Crotonville.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I've got one question and one comment.
Okay.
And the question is to Donna. Can you put what you said earlier in?
She's going to, yeah, put it in an email.
Thank you very much. And just to let you know, in the next version, Christy and I are working on that cabaret hours issue that
Oh, yes.
we mentioned last time.
Right.
Yes.
So the next version of this will have that in it.
Okay.
Okay.
So there'll be more flexibility.
Yes.
To determine the actual hours that align better with the New York State.
So, well, no, it's that they can sell liquor till 4 a.m.
Right.
It's a question of whether they can have music, and so the part that we are talking about changing is how late they can. Anybody who wants a cabaret license can have music, and I think what
Right
we
now, it's in our
talked
code
about
only till midnight,
It's
I
only
think.
till
Case by case
midnight in our
basis.
code, and the other thing we talked about is having the ability to do a case by case. It's midnight.
It depends on the night of the week.
Right. Okay. Right, but also the fact that we have we retain the right to determine based on location of business.
Well,
Or
yeah.
case by case business.
Case by case basis, because the town board does review every single cabaret
Right.
application and renewal application, and so, certainly we can craft some language to allow the town board discretion to extend those hours under circumstances it deems appropriate. I did look at the code after the discussion after the last meeting, and there is some hard and fast language in there about hours of operation, which, based upon what we discussed at the previous meeting, isn't really consistent with state law. So I would recommend while you're doing that anyway, it's the same section of the code that deals with both issues of music playing as well as operation. I would just suggest that you consider amending that as well, just to make sure it's not inconsistent.
So in theory, does the state liquor authority's law say, does the state law say that a business that has a liquor license can sell alcohol until 4 a.m. any day of the week, all 7?
I believe so, and then people are allowed an extra half hour to consume it. So,
For real?
I mean, I'll double check.
You don't have to
I
kick 'em out till
believe that is
4:30.
the case.
I need to call SLA. Like we need to have
I
talk.
know it says 4 o'clock. That I'm not sure if there's some
Yeah,
if there's some variation. I think the only distinction actually that I can recall from when I looked at it is on Sunday. That you can open later. You have to open later on Sunday than you can the other days of the week.
And that was the only distinction. Can we
There
take a
is-
look? I just would be so surprised that any establishment that has, that has a liquor license can be open till 4 a.m. Any day of the week.
The only distinction I believe that I remember, because I read this law
Oh, okay.
because of, excuse me,
Because you wanted.
because of, there's a club license and there's
Liquor
a
license.
liquor license for a bar.
Right.
And I think the club license,
Uh-huh.
there's a little difference in the two, but it's the club. The bar, you can stay open till 4 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
And you close your doors, you can stay inside and do whatever until whatever.
Whatever until
Right, you
whatever.
get more time to consume.
Yeah.
You can only serve it until a certain time.
I like the fact that Mr. Butcher was reading the liquor laws.
Well, at that time, I had to know what I was doing because I was running the bar.
Oh, there you go.
So
I hear
I
you.
didn't enjoy it, but I did.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
do you have the clarification
Private
that
club
you
can
need?
close the
or
doors
Is there
instead,
anything else that you want to talk
people could
about?
stay in.
No,
I
yes.
think that's it.
We did it.
Okay.
Okay, I actually, under state law, alcoholic beverage control law, section 1065, when an establishment has been issued a liquor license, it is only prohibited from selling liquor between the hours of 4 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Sundays and 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. all other days.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, so we're gonna work on the noise part of it, so that we have control over the cabaret piece, right? And,
Well, and also, really over the ability to extend it first.
Correct.
If we want, because then now it's hard and, right, okay.
okay, control. Okay, so, thank you. And I think we're going to, make a motion to go into executive session for, yes. And we have, contracts and personnel.
Nope.
Karen,
You have a choice.
would you make a motion? To go
Make a
into
motion.
Executive session?
Good night.
I make a
Thank you.
motion.
Thank you very much. Bye, Donna. I hear a motion from. Did you make a motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. I'm not asking him for opposed, so. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Oh, sorry.
You really have to say goodnight.
Sorry. I have to say goodnight. We're still on camera. Sorry, everybody. Have a great night. And we will see you at our legislative meeting on March 28th, which is next Tuesday at 7:30, and we'll be at the courthouse at 8688 Spring Street. Look forward to seeing everybody then. Have a great week.
Unless we're still here.
And to our constituency in terms of what they're asking for, then it is only okay that we can ask back. Now, we can't.
I think if we're concerned enough about
Christie.
what the potential is that could happen, then we should consider
Zoning it.
changing the zoning. If we believe that, which I actually believe, that it's much more likely that some of those structures are going to be maintained, and it's much more likely that they're gonna be able to sell that for an institutional use than anything else. What kind, I don't know. It could end up being senior housing, it could be this, that, the other thing. But if we believe that somebody's actually gonna just tear it down and start from scratch, then, you know, we should absolutely, you know, be concerned about this.
See, now my thought was that they would sell off little edges of the property, say over here, and have, you know, a neighborhood instead of where the soccer field is, next to their property, as, you know, if they needed money, that they would sell that off.
Just to
As
add a
I
little-
believe from what I got from their conversation.
This is where the Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway part is?
Yeah, it is actually.
Just to add a little bit of information, if they were to want to develop part of the property or the whole thing, forgetting about the conservation easement for a moment.
Got it.
The planning board not only has the ability to allow conservation or cluster development, it also has the authority to mandate conservation subdivisions or cluster development. And there was a gentleman at the last meeting who was trying to create a distinction between conservation subdivisions and cluster development, and in one he had 30% open space, and another he had 60. I don't know of any hard and fast rules like that. There are all kinds of cluster developments. Some are more compact, some are more spread out. But the planning board has the authority to allow them, approve them, and mandate them under certain circumstances
In any neighborhood,
in any development.
in any undeveloped area.
You wouldn't do it in a two-lot subdivision, but if there were a sizable, you know,
Sizable acreage.
enough units to warrant it, the planning board could allow it, could approve it, and could mandate it.
Chrissy, did you have something you wanted to tell us?
I would proceed cautiously with what you're gonna ask of someone or a property owner before you're going to make a decision
Oh,
about.
no,
the
no,
property.
I didn't mean,
after?
I mean
Okay,
after.
Okay, that's
No,
all I wanted to
I
be
know
clear.
the words,
Okay, that was all, that's all I wanted to caution.
let me be clear. I would never ask anybody anything before we made a decision. It would be an ask after. Let me be further clear. Asking is not demanding, mandating, or no. I'm saying you can ask anything after.
I agree
You
with you.
don't
Okay.
have anything. Nobody has to say yes in life.
No, the key word is after.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, yeah.
That's just what I wanted to
Oh,
make sure
yeah,
we
yeah.
were clear about.
Whatever we decide to do, we're gonna decide to do. My point was,
if we decide that we will keep it as is, if we are thinking that to your point, that the chances are not high that somebody would come and, that they're gonna sell it, that it's gonna be raised, that they're gonna take out that beautiful building, and that the chances are not high, and so we decide, you know what, the chances are higher that the uses are gonna be kept, and so why just not leave it? We vote on that if we were to do that, and then we could say, hi, we heard you, we've determined, we ask, we move on. If, you know,
I think
that's what I hope
actually-
that's
I mean,
clear.
what I actually think would be our best bet would be to leave it, and then to actually sit down and talk to them about what would be some potential uses and some potential ways for them to generate some revenue,
And I would like to do
in
that with
a
a
way
couple
that
of
would
other
be
property use.
positive for
There are
the
a few other
community.
property owners who I think we should have that conversation with too, to
Right.
help them.
Right.
To have them feel like we are part of helping them and part of the conversation, so that they can feel heard and helped. We might be able to get what we think is more of the vision, you know, as a collaborative thing. You know.
And I think we can do that without changing the zoning. So I think, you know, again, I think maybe the best thing to do is to leave it as is and see if we can work with them on, moving forward in a direction that would be positive for the community. For you.
Still looking at the map.
Mr. Wiltshire.
Excuse me. I'm just listening, but to me, this should not even be our business, I don't think. That's their property. How are we gonna just dictate what they have to do? I just don't like it. I don't care if it is a comprehensive plan. I don't care who planned it. Now,
In theory,
you gonna
townspeople.
in nothing. If you come to my house and tell me I got to build something or I can't build something on the rest of my property, no, that's not gonna go
You
very
can't have
well.
5 families in your house.
You don't know
I mean,
that.
that's all the time. That's part of what our job is, though.
But that, I
really-
just
that's part of
don't,
what our
I
job
don't,
is.
I just don't like it.
Well, we
Okay,
have,
all
we
right.
have
Go ahead.
the town supervisor who stated that she feels a certain way. I think I tend to lean towards where she is, and we definitely know where Mr. Wiltshire stands. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's,
I'm looking at the piece of property that we're talking about because most of the open space is actually in Newcastle, is already zoned 2A.
no, I mean, that's not true. There's a chunk of property that chunk.
But
is-
from what I know of Maryknoll property, and have been there quite a bit,
that's it, right.
the main buildings here, nobody in their right mind would touch that, and they're
Right.
all right, let's just not go there. That would be silly. I doubt they're knocking down the post office. The father's nursing home.
So where?
While it's not the prettiest building in the world, it's a very useful building, so I wouldn't see them. There's tennis court, and there's parking, so it's only really the soccer field, which is damp
bottom.
anyway. Right, the soccer field, kind of right across from Brookside School, and that's really not a big enough piece to upset that many fathers. I mean, but once I found out that there's already a conservation over here on this side, and that most of these antique buildings that really don't feel are at risk of being knocked down and made into multiple unit housing.
What's along this side that says,
Where?
Briarcliff Peekskill Trailway, that area?
That's behind it. Now that's between where the water tower is on Minkle and Redway. That's the land between that and at the bottom of the slope.
Ah, that's
It's
like-
wet and it's a
like
stream.
woods over
Yeah, it's a trailway. It's a wooded path.
It's a path.
And it's
Part
a
of the
park.
Connection to T-Town.
He said it's owned by the state?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay, then-
park.
I got it.
The trailway is a park.
Ah, okay.
So that's undevelopable also.
Got it. Okay, so it's sandwiched between two undevelopable. Okay. Two pieces that are not able to be developed, we think, and then.
Right.
And then major portions that have.
Historical buildings. I
Historical
mean, really
buildings,
relevant
right.
buildings.
Well, right, okay.
So if that's the only piece, and I don't think the father's nursing home is I haven't looked very carefully. That's not a very relevant building to me, but it's really well used and it's serving a purpose. I don't see somebody coming in like building a bunch of houses right there.
Okay.
So.
I think we've.
We could probably, now that I know that much of it's conserved between the park and the other side, I'm okay leaving it where it is.
Okay.
All right, back to square one.
No, but I
Hope you
think
enjoyed
it's
our little
been-
ride.
But then that suggestion can be taken out of the comprehensive plan?
That it's been evaluated?
Then we can take,
Have some future board going back.
yes, yeah. That was the point. So I think we should remove that from the comprehensive plan.
It has been delved into, looked at, and
Make some adjustments.
Yeah.
Amendment, and we can also amend the part about Crotonville.
Okay. Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry. And I got one question and one comment.
okay.
And the question is to Donna. Can you put what you said earlier in?
She's going to, put in an email.
Thank you very much. And just to let you know, in the next version, Christy and I are working on that cabaret hours issue that
Oh,
we
yes,
mentioned last time.
Right.
yes.
The next version of this will have that in it.
Okay,
Okay.
so there'll be more flexibility. To
Yes.
determine the actual hours that align better with the New York State.
So, well, no, it's that they can sell liquor till 4 a.m.
Right.
It's a question of whether they can have music, and so the part that we are talking about changing is how late they can. Anybody who wants a cabaret license can have music, and I think what
Right
we
now, it's in our
talked
code
about
only till midnight.
it's
I
only
think.
till
Case by case
midnight in our
basis.
code. And the other thing we talked about is having the ability to do a case by case. It's midnight.
It depends on the night of the week.
Right, okay. Right, but also the fact that we have we retain the right to determine based on location of business.
Well,
Or
yeah.
case by case business.
Case by case basis, because the town board does review every single cabaret
Right.
application and renewal application, and so, certainly we can craft some language to allow the town board discretion to extend those hours under circumstances it deems appropriate. I did look at the code after the discussion after the last meeting, and there is some hard and fast language in there about hours of operation, which, based upon what we discussed at the previous meeting, isn't really consistent with state law. So I would recommend while you're doing that anyway, it's the same section of the code that deals with both issues of music playing as well as operation. I would just suggest that you consider amending that as well, just to make sure it's not inconsistent.
So in theory, does the state liquor authority's law say, does the state law say that a business that has a liquor license can sell alcohol until 4 a.m. any day of the week, all 7?
I believe so, and then people are allowed an extra half hour to consume it. So,
For real?
I mean, I'll double check.
You don't have to
I
kick 'em out till
believe that is
4:30.
the case.
I need to call SLA. Like we need to have
I
talk.
know it says 4 o'clock. But I'm not sure if there's some
Yeah,
if there's some variation. I think the only distinction actually that I can recall from when I looked at it is on Sunday. That you can open later. You have to open later on Sunday than you can the other days of the week.
And that was the only distinction. Can we
There
take a
is-
look? I just would be so surprised that any establishment that has, that has a liquor license can be open till 4 a.m. Any day of the week.
The only distinction I believe that I remember, because I read this law
Oh, okay.
because of, excuse me,
Because you wanted.
because of, there's a club license and there's
Liquor
a
license.
liquor license for a bar.
Right.
And I think the club license,
Uh-huh.
there's a little difference in the two, but it's the club. The bar, you can stay open to 4 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
and you close your doors, you can stay inside and do whatever until whatever.
Whatever until
Right, you
whatever.
get more time to consume.
Yeah.
You can only serve it until a certain time.
I like the fact that Mr. Butcher was reading the liquor laws.
Well, at that time, I had to know what I was doing because I was running the bar.
Oh, there you go.
So
I hear
I
you.
didn't enjoy it, but I did.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
you have the clarification
Private
that
club
you
can
need
close the
for-
doors
Is there
and
anything
stay,
else that you want to talk
people can
about?
stay in.
Oh,
I
yes.
think that's it.
We did it.
Okay.
Okay, I actually, under state law, alcoholic beverage control law, section 1065, when an establishment has been issued a liquor license, it is only prohibited from selling liquor between the hours of 4 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Sundays and 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. all other days.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, so we're gonna work on the noise part of it, so that we have control over the cabaret piece, right? And,
Well, and also really over the ability to extend it first.
Correct.
If we want, because then now it's hard and very, okay.
okay, control. Okay, so, thank you. And I think we're going to, make a motion to go into executive session for, yes. And we have, contracts and personnel.
Nope.
Karen,
You have a choice.
would you make a motion? To go
Make a
into
motion.
Executive session?
Good night.
I make a
Thank you.
motion.
Thank you very much. Bye, Donna. I hear a motion from. Did you make a motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. I'm not asking him for oppose, so. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Oh, sorry.
You really have to say goodnight.
Sorry. I have to say goodnight. We're still on camera. Sorry, everybody. Have a great night. And we will see you at our legislative meeting on March 28th, which is next Tuesday at 7:30, and we'll be at the courthouse at 8688 Spring Street. Look forward to seeing everybody then. Have a great week.
Unless we're still here.